What is up, everybody? It's me, Vish Kumaran, here with the Vish Kumaran Show, and I'm here joined by my two friends who join me every Thursday. Larry Krueger from the Krueg Show, where we will be next week, and Jessie Naylor below me from Last Second Sports, who we will be joining on Last Second Sports 2 Thursdays from now. What's up, guys? I was really looking forward to this show. I don't know that if there's ever been a more exciting time to discuss, because it feels like everything the three of us have been discussing this entire offseason culminated in a decision made yesterday. And so I'm sure we're going to get into that. But otherwise, Larry, what's up? How's it going?
Man, it's going great. It's going absolutely great. Can't wait for the season. Can't wait for this. I've been fired up all day to do this live stream. I streamed a couple times this morning with like Chargers. I got the announcer of the Chargers and one of their beat writers and just kind of previewing the game. But I knew, that I can't get into, the Niners on a level with Trey Lance and the way this whole thing has gone down with the Chargers play-by-play announcer. You know what I'm saying? So I've been looking forward to this, and I'm fired up, man. We've had great numbers all week. I saw Jesse blew up yesterday and his deal, and Grant did as well, and there's just a lot of interest in this topic. Let's just be honest, and this is somewhat of a soap opera at this point. So, it's a little bit. It's transcended football, guys. That's the thing. It was a football discussion that's now become the number one talking point in the NFL, and so for guys like us who create content and it's great stuff. Can't beat it.
Jesse, what's up?
49ers make it easy. The 49ers make it easy on us, Vish. Do we even have to work for anything around here? It's absolutely insane. I love it. And I will. I'm going to correct you a little bit, though, because you said a decision came down yesterday. Based off of everything that has come out since then, it seems like this decision came down as early as February 2022, actually. So we'll talk about it all, though.
Yeah, Sonny Desai wants us to get straight into it. He's not messing around. He says, appreciate the super chat, by the way. He says, even if we kept the picks, do you guys trust this front office to make the right picks? ? Foster, Thomas, McGlinchey, Kinlaw. They're terrible at top of the draft picks. I think he means top picks at the top of the draft. And I will add to this before I shoot it down to you, Jesse, first, and then I go to you, Larry. I will add to this that I did see that the 49ers in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's regime have never given a second contract to a first-round draft pick on this team. Solomon Thomas didn't get one. Reuben Foster didn't get one. Mike McGlinchey didn't get one. Nick Bosa has
yet to get one.
But he's yet to get one, right? Javon Kinlaw hasn't got one. Brendan Ayuk is also yet to get one, but he hasn't gotten one yet. And then finally, that leaves us with Trey Lance, who's likely not going to get one. Jesse, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not as into the whole conversation of, well, they could have gotten this player and they could have gotten that. Who knows what they would have drafted? There's no way to know. And there's also no way to know how that player fits on the 49ers. Career trajectories change. If you change things by milliseconds, career trajectories change. If Parsons comes to the 49ers, does he tear his Achilles? There's just things that you don't know how they would play out. The assumption is, if this player had gone here, he would have been great. He was great here, so he'd fit in good here. We don't know those things. So I'm not going to cry over spilt milk when it comes to the picks. But for me, the real issue at hand is, do I trust the 49ers to make the right decision at quarterback repeatedly? And right now, that answer is a resounding no.
Well said, Krug.
Well, I just think perspective has to be had here, okay? Did the Niners, go all in on Trey Lance, and for the moment it looks like a bad decision? Sure. But that's still for the moment. It's a moving target. his career's not over. The whole thing has not been defined yet. And at the end of the day, it's like if you want to call out Shanahan and Lynch for not picking the right quarterback or not making the right decision, that's totally fine. And it looks totally like that right now. But at the end of the day, it's like, to me, it's about, do you win? It's like, what if you had great picks, but you lost? They've had some bad picks, but they've won. And they haven't won the Super Bowl, but they've been in 3 of the last 4 NFC title games, and they've gone to a Super Bowl. And I bring this up, guys, because if you said to most people, who is on top of the football world, I think most people would say it's the Chiefs, right? Mm-hmm. And Brett Veach is their general manager. Who was his top pick in 2018? Do you guys remember? I'll remind you. It was Breeland Speaks.
Oh, I do remember this.
Who is now going to get cut by the Niners in a matter of days. That was their 2018 top pick.
Who was their 20 passer on Brady too?
Who was their 20
in New England?
Who was their top pick in 2019? McCole Hardman. Who was their top pick in 2020? First round even. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So what, should Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs, be fired? No. They've gone to the Super Bowl, 3 times in the last few years, and they've won 2. So the draft is one of one of a few avenues to improve your team, right? Free agency matters, the draft matters top to bottom, and obviously trades matter. And Brett Veach has done kind of a spotty job at the top of the draft, to be honest. And I guess you could probably make the same claim about John Lynch, but it's really only part of the equation. It's not the entire equation. So it's like, if you want to say John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan didn't get this one right, I'm with you, and I'm not going to run from it. But if you're going to then go to the next point and be like, Lynch needs to go, Shanahan's awful. No, they're one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl. They've been in 3 of the last 4 NFC Championship games. They have a good young quarterback right now. And I think Shanahan's a top-tier young coach, and I think Lynch is a top-tier general manager. But there's no doubt in the present that draft pick and what they gave up for Trey Lance, guys, it's indefensible, I guess would be the word I would use.
See, but it would be defensible. Like, you could defend it if we knew what Trey Lance was today. Like, if they had really poured their efforts into Trey Lance and was like, listen, like, Trey Lance just truly isn't good. I know people want to be like, well, we know he's a bust. No, we don't know he's a bust. If we knew without a doubt, we gave it 2 full seasons, he's just not improving, there's nothing we can do, it's not going to work out here, fine. But when you have a report that comes out that says after their rookie season, they're willing to move on from him, it's like, hold on a second. You just traded all these picks for him. You haven't even...
By the way, for the sake of just... because I know what you're referring to, and I want to clarify this just before we move on in the conversation. Yeah. Did you interpret Kawakami's last February as 2022 February? Yes. I did interpret it as 2023, but I did understand your point because you would have written in February if it was...
Listen, if Kawakami, and he may come out and say he messed up, and I would love to hear that, but he is a veteran in this game. He knows what that means. He knows what that implies. If I'm speaking past tense about this February, I would say, yeah, in February they put him up for trade, or February 2023, or this February he went. There's so many ways that you could have said it. When you say last February in the current year that you're in, you're talking about 2022. So either it was a complete botch on his part, but I'm going to give him more credit than that. I think he's too much of a veteran to make that mistake if that's exactly what he meant. I don't believe that that's what he meant at all. Either way, it really doesn't matter. The point is that overall, we don't know what Trey Lance is. And the 2023 should Brock Purdy start, my issue was never with the 2023 season and should Brock Purdy start? Because that is a resounding yes. He earned it. I don't know really how you can argue against it. It was more, what did they do in 2021 to make sure that they figured this out right away? That was always my issue. It's always going to be my issue. They can't go back and fix it. And then to hear that this whole thing for quarterback 2, like now we've got people holding water for the 49ers and are like, oh, okay, well, hold on a second. Sam Darnold really has been clearly better for 10 days. Oh, word, because you haven't reported that. I haven't heard that. When he went 1 for 7, were you saying he was clearly better 6 days ago? No. This was clearly decided 5 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. They've been out on Trey Lance. It was a stacked deck the whole time. There was nothing that Trey Lance really could have done to win quarterback 2, in my opinion. So what was the point of this whole thing?
So before Larry goes at this, I think this is actually a good segue because it brings to a theory I have. Before we get to that theory, I'm just going to read off the other super chats we have, and then I'm going to segue us right through that because I want to stay with what Jesse brought up. So first, Brother Bob, thank you. He's, of course, talking to our resident Purdy's. I'm not going to say that word. This is a family show.
Brother Bob owes me a major apology, man. Seriously, I was saying if Trey Lance indeed is going to get traded, he's been busting my chops for misreading the tea leaves when really it sounds like maybe I might have.
Nobody reads the tea leaves like you, Krueg. I will say that. You read them
professional
right.
Tea leaf reader.
Joseph Stockbridge says he sent a heated complaint to the organization threatening to change allegiance if we don't win a Super Bowl.
I'm sure that's going to be effective.
I've been threatening the same thing since I was 5 years old and they were losing. Right. I used to throw the tantrum to my dad. I was like, why did you do this to me? You made me a Niners fan. You gave me this pain and suffering. Brother Bob says PP, our resident PP upstairs, pig in a pickle, or Purdy's family show.
Pig in a pickle. Let's call him pig in a pickle.
All right, pig in a pickle. You recall? We'll give him the free promotion. Pig in a pickle. Still waiting for my free meal, my sponsorship, whatever. But it's okay. I'll give you the free promotion. Pig in a pickle.
By the way, pig in a pickle re-up today for another 6 months. So there'll be more pig in a pickle coming your way, fellas.
There we go. Perfect.
Good to know. You recall Super Bowl winning years? That's success. He's talking to you because I'm not old enough to recall that. I'll tell you that.
It was a long time ago, though. It was a long time ago, man. We're talking about, before I was married, and I have 4 kids, and 2 of them are out of college almost.
Ronald Keys says give them props for surviving Trey and Kinlaw picks. Sure, and that I think they've had enough props because usually people don't even survive with their job when they miss on a pick like Trey Lance. So the fact
give them props for
they have job security.
Hold on a second.
All they need.
Let's give them props for laying a bunch of landmines in the yard and then realizing, oh, I know where I laid it and I can avoid it as I walk through my own yard. Like they're the ones that made those picks. So great. Congratulations. You were able to overcome your own shitty pick. That's great.
Jesse's not having it. Ronald Keys says, we do know Trey is just as injury prone as Jimmy G. I don't know that that's fair, but let's get back to what Jesse was talking about.
I don't think that's fair. That's not fair.
I agree with you, but I don't want to go there. I want to get back to what Jesse was talking about because I think the last 2 days, what Jesse talked about with it not being a perfectly fair competition illuminated a few things to me, right? The standard question that I've asked to both of you on every show we've ever done is forget Brock Purdy. How did Sam Darnold get into this equation? What happened between anointing Trey Lance as the franchise QB last year, him getting hurt, and then him competing between Sam Darnold, right? We never got an answer for that. And I think what I've learned over the last couple of days and what I want to get to with you guys is it seems like the Niners had made a decision, and Cavalcante wrote it this way too, to be out on Trey Lance after 2022. I don't know what went on in the 2022 offseason, but whatever went on, I think it was somehow catastrophic. It freaked them. They hedged the crap out of it by bringing back Jimmy. I think that's very, very clear at this point. And it scared them to the point that they went and signed Sam Darnold, and they were pretty much willing to shop Trey Lance, right? Lynch denied that they were shopping him in February, but Lynch has already publicly admitted it, that they were shopping him during draft time. And draft time was, maybe 15 days after he was cleared. So we're not talking about a large window for them to have him back, and something has changed this particular offseason. And that's where, to me, if we look at this Trey Lance situation, I think the biggest issue in process is actually before the draft, and we can get into that, and I'm sure we will later in the show. But what do you think of that when I say that the biggest interpretation I get seeing how it played out this offseason is that it was a catastrophe in their mind on what happened in 2022. And I'll leave you with this last point, and I'll go to Krueg first and then to Jessie. And the last thing that strengthens my point the most is they told us with a straight face they feel he has improved this offseason from last offseason. And this offseason, he's their third quarterback in a weaker quarterback room than when he was the starter last year in a stronger quarterback room, right? Same two people between Purdy and Lance and Jimmy G versus Sam Darnold. I think everybody takes Jimmy G. So what do you guys think of that theory? Do you think that there's credence to my idea that this fell apart with Trey Lance in 2022 and Brock Purdy kind of allowed them to have a clean break from this situation? What do you think, Krueger?
Well, it's hard to know when they they obviously at some point made the evaluation they liked him, and obviously at some point they made the evaluation that they had to bring Jimmy back, and there was not a lot of football played by Trey Lance in between there. So something that Trey did along the way there made them change their tune. I think they're saying that he's improved from last year because we're all smart enough to see that it's perfectly clear. But this goes right back. I don't want. This is not about me, but I told you guys in February that it sounded to me like they had decided that Brock was their guy. They were going to recommit to Brock and move on. And then here comes Darnold, and then here comes Allen, and it's just all kind of reconfirmed that idea to me. So, as far as when did they decide they were? They obviously hedged when they brought back Garoppolo. In 22, right? So they were hedging then. And then the Darnold thing, I think a lot of people read it as they're hedging on Purdy's health. We had many live streams, Vish, you and I, where we openly debated that exact question. Is Sam Darnold a hedge against Brock Purdy's health or against Trey Lance's development?
We loved talking about that, didn't we?
Yeah, and it was a topic that was primary. And then to me, they obviously said something to Sam Darnold to get him to sign here on day one of free agency. And they said something to Brandon Allen to get him to sign here. What I don't get is really more of the last 24 hours where you give Sam Darnold the number 2 job. Trey Lance is not at practice. And then within 24 hours of that, when it looks like, man, they're going to shop him, Shanahan saying, I hope he's on the roster. Lynch is saying he's most likely going to be on the roster. It just seems like everything is based on, the market that we're unaware of. Lynch went on KMBR this morning and said if we can find a landing spot for Trey Lance, that's a really good one for him and works for our organization. That's not something we'd turn a blind eye to. I think that's an understatement. I think what he really meant to say is we're going to run towards that. But then he goes on to say, but that's not where our focus is right now. Our focus is on getting Trey back here and us being the best football team. So, personally, I don't want to see him traded unless they are a better Super Bowl contender. And that means they don't get a draft pick, but they actually get a player that helps them win the Super Bowl this year. Otherwise, even though he's an insurance policy at a position that I think they probably need an insurance policy at, and there's value in that. And that value is greater than what they're going to get in draft pick compensation in 2023 and, next year's draft, 2024 draft. So I'm with the people saying, Peter King went on 95.7 The Game today and was like, hey, I hope they don't get rid of him. I hope they decide to keep him because I agree with him. I think it would be smart. And then there's a lot of different wrinkles to this, but Peter King says, I'm just telling you, do not trade this guy. I think it would be a big mistake. And that's what he said about the Niners in their decision to trade or not to trade Trey Lance. He said that today with Willard and Dibbs on 95.7.
So what are you going to do? Just keep him on ice? Like he's going to be forever the quarterback that we'll never find out if he can play or not.
Well, and then there's the other thing, and not to jump over Jesse here. I'm Jesse. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I mean, one of the things that, you know, to my naked eye, I would say that they were comparable in camp. Okay, very comparable. But the one stat that really is revealing, and I thought that Lance obviously looked better than, Darnold looked better than Lance in that Raider preseason game, in my eyes. But I also kind of felt like Lance looked better than Darnold in the Denver game the very next week. But I did see today in training camp, and I didn't keep this stat, and I have to trust that this stat is accurate. But people who did keep this stat said
that
that
red zone touchdown percentage that Lombardi posted.
Exactly. That Purdy's, and you know, if you believe Dave, and you know, I'll say this, I know that Purdy and Darnold's red zone touchdown percentage was higher than Lance's. But if you believe Dave, I think he had it at Purdy at 37%, Darnold at 33%, and Lance at 16%. And I will say this, that really close in and in short windows is the weakness of Lance at this juncture. He's not quite as accurate and on time when the windows get smaller. So I believe that their numbers are better than his in the red zone. I don't know that it's that pronounced, but I believe that they did have better red zone numbers.
Jesse, go ahead.
The thing about red zone numbers is you have to figure out how to get there before they become relevant. And one thing that I do know is that when I was there, Sam Darnold led offenses couldn't move the ball. And Trey Lance, every time he would get on the field in the move the ball periods, they would move the ball. I mean, that's what I saw for 5 straight days. Sam Darnold comes on the field, they go 3 and out, they get 1 first down, they stall out. There was a 3 and out period where they lost yards. And then you're seeing that play out in the preseason games and not all of it's been his fault. Latu had a fumble or whatever. He threw a perfect pass to Bell that was intercepted, but
he got stuffed on a quarterback sneak.
It took a lot for them to try to gas up Sam Darnold. And I felt like that's what they were trying to do. It's like, shoot, like Sam hasn't moved the ball all game and didn't do it last game either. Let's bring him back for the third quarter. Well, he didn't do it again for the first drive. Let's keep him out there again. Okay, finally we scored. We can get him out of here. It's like, I just felt like they went completely out of their way to prop him up so that they could justify this decision that was really made 5 months ago. So to me, if it was even close, and listen, based off of what I saw in the short 5 days I was there, based off of what I've seen in the regular season games, kind of trying to put together reports from the days that I haven't been there, I would give the edge to Lance, and I would feel pretty confident in that. But even if Darnold had the slight edge, we're talking about splitting hairs at most right here. So why wouldn't the tie go to Trey Lance, the guy that you spent all that capital on, the one that you believed in 2 years ago, the one that Vish, I'm gonna take this. You probably had it saved up, but somebody on your Twitter made a great comment. When Sam Darnold was available in free agency and went for way less than what the 49ers gave up to go get Trey Lance, they could have had Sam Darnold. They decided to give up more and go get Trey Lance. So there was something they saw there.
They were interested that same offseason too for Sam Darnold.
They
did
were.
Their homework.
They were, and they could have gotten him for a hell of a lot less. So there was something there. What changed? It's interesting because that question kept coming up, and Vish, you talked about it the most. What changed between last year when he was the starter? If you still love him and he's improving, I don't understand this. That question hits very different when now, in hindsight, we know that the reality was they've been trying to move him for over a year. That's right. Where they're at. So that's what's changed. Nothing literally has changed because they didn't like him then and they don't like him now. But for some reason, they want to hold him hostage. I don't understand it. If you don't want him here, you don't believe there's a future, you can say that we like him and we don't want to trade him and all these other things. Everything you've done has said the opposite of that. So then why do you continue to force him to be on this team? That doesn't make sense to me.
It's that tough situation where I think part of the reason why they keep, and I'm going to answer all of this right here, And so first, in regard to the why they keep saying they want to keep him, it's because I think they have a very strong understanding that trading him at this point is very difficult. And you know what? I think they also understand that part of the issues in the situation stems from not what's happened since he's gotten here, but the misevaluation to bring him here. Not understanding the timeline of your football team and understanding the timeline that Trey Lance needed. And I think that's where some of it is like, well, we'll keep you rostered at least, and you can be the third quarterback because we feel bad, about the situation and the fact that it'll be difficult. Like, it's difficult right now for Trey Lance to go catch on with another team. His career is in a complete state of limbo. Like, his career is in purgatory right now. He needs something to pull him out. He needs a miracle chance right now because he's in a really, really tough spot with how finances have been allocated and where he is in his development. Now, in regard to the quarterback stat and the red zone stats, so here's my issue with that. I feel like each year in training camp, we do this statistical profile and it's like throwing shit against a wall, right? We decide to give a new stat, like different interpretation. Last year, David Lombardi was going on and on about the completion percentage in the move the ball period. That was his favorite stat. This year, he posted the same stat. Sam Darnold and Trey Lance were both 57%. Guess what? It probably meant nothing last year. It probably means nothing this year. So he finds whatever stat he's calculated that has a different profile between the two, and he's like, see, that's the one that shows why one is playing and one isn't. I don't think that's the case. Personally, I think the biggest thing, and I think the reason why Trey Lance always had the work cut out for him in this competition is that the experience was always going to be a factor when you're picking the backup quarterback, right? Once Purdy came back and was healthy, as Krueger said the entire offseason, this team established they were fully committed to Purdy. Now it's about building the correct quarterback room around Purdy, and those variables change very much because that's not just about what's on the football field. That's about who's experienced if Purdy's out for a couple plays. Who do we feel can run our offense in that kind of a situation? And that's where you go with even though Sam Darnold doesn't reach the highs, even in preseason, that Trey Lance has reached, I think there's more consistency to Sam Darnold's level of execution of the offense, whereas Trey Lance, the peaks are way higher, but there were also valleys that I'm sure would scare Shanahan. And I think that's where the situation kind of got. I think the biggest thing is, Krug, you were right about one thing. So you and I were both kind of right. Because if you remember, our conversation about trading him was that I said it made sense for him to be traded. You said they would trade him. I said they wouldn't trade him till around here. And I guess we were all kind of right in some capacity. But either way, for Trey Lance's career, the best case scenario was to somehow see the writing on the wall and somehow get yourself to another organization in May or March. Because I think outside of Brock Purdy melting in training camp, as Shanahan said, outside of Brock Purdy not being fully healthy, which was a possibility, and outside of Sam Darnold just being an absolute biscuit, I think his work was cut out where it was a situation where the Niners were pretty much coming into this season understanding that was going to be their 1 and 2.
There's a lot of meat on this bone, but I will say this. The one thing is we don't really know Kyle Shanahan, right? Like, I know him a little bit, and you guys really just know him from afar. And I'm not saying I know him better than you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is really,
you're right.
At the end of the day, like, it's his call, right? And this is all not. It's not about you, me, Jesse, Grant, or anything or anybody else. It's about Kyle Shanahan. And to me, the most revealing part, since we don't know him, we have to kind of either guess or lean on people that do. And to me, the most interesting media that I've seen in this last few weeks was a tweet that I retweeted on my Twitter from Ari Myrov, and I think I played it in one of our past streams. It was from that 33rd team, and it was the Joe Banner clip. And Joe Banner, who does know Kyle Shanahan and did work with Kyle Shanahan, basically revealed that Kyle's somewhat emotional, somewhat impulsive, and then he goes on to say if you get in his doghouse, he no longer really sees it like in a clear way, and it's very, very difficult to escape that doghouse. Kyle would never admit that Trey's in his doghouse, but it's like anything else. Who's got the most who's got the most job security? The guy that they signed originally for the biggest amount of money, or the guy they just signed Friday? It's like the guy they just signed Friday, in this case, Sam Darnold, has job security that supersedes the investment in Trey Lance. And somewhere along the line, an emotional Kyle Shanahan saw something he did not like from Trey Lance, made a decision, and now the rest of this is just about kind of executing the transition in a palatable way for the public. And that's kind of how I see it. I would encourage anybody to go back on my Twitter, and I think I tweeted this out. It was Ari Meyerhoff from August 16th.
We played it on our last show. And
it's a really good cut from Banner, who knows Kyle Shanahan personally, and said that Kyle's a great coach and gave him his flowers, but at the same time said when he sours on a prospect, you have a really hard time kind of getting him back to look at it objectively. And Banner in that same cut kind of references that he himself, Joe Banner, kind of liked Trey Lance in the draft process and really saw but kind of admitted that it was almost time for the 49ers to move on, not for any real reason other than, hey, when you get in Kyle's doghouse, he has a hard time being objective from that point forward. And it was an incredibly well said thing by a guy who actually knows Shanahan. So that's all for me, it's guesswork, guys. I see what Jessie sees, which is I thought they were very comparable this summer. And if I had to give one edge going into the preseason, I would have given it to Lance. I would have given the Darnold edge coming out of the Raider game, and I would have given the Lance edge coming out of the Denver game. But there are some Niner people that I have talked to who are very they have a lot of conviction that Trey's never going to make it. And I'm just not in that camp. I'm a believer that Trey is inevitably going to make it. It's just not necessarily by Heinz Field, but in week one. But I also agree with Peter King, with Ian Williams, and others who have said, do not trade this guy. You will rue the day you traded him.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing is that, most of this offseason, I've spent the time saying, don't do to Brock Purdy what you did to Trey Lance. So I don't on one hand, I want to applaud the 49ers and in fact, I did immediately yesterday. I was like, hey, you know what? I love that the 49ers are moving forward and are convicted with Brock Purdy, because that shows that you're all in. So you're going to remove Trey Lance from the equation. I thought, hey, this is the time. They're going to trade him, whatever. This is good for Brock Purdy. Let's just be done with the whole thing. But then I'm going to rescind all of that, because to me, that is a very in the moment thing to do based off of, again, that article from Kawakami. The 49ers, who have sold a lot of people on this cheap quarterback room. That's what they wanted. That's why Purdy's here. That's why Lance is here. We're willing to re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo this season if he didn't get hurt last year. They believed so much in Brock Purdy, and they knew so much about Brock Purdy that he was never going to see the field if Jimmy Garoppolo stayed healthy, and they were going to re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo to be the starting quarterback this year. That wouldn't have been a cheap quarterback room. That's not the way that would have worked out. So I just feel like everything is being made up as they go. So it's hard for me to be like, yeah, this is great. You're going all in on Purdy. Well, yeah, that's the case now.
They're all in on Purdy for this year. That's the best way to talk about it.
If he sucks in 4 games, they've already told you they think Steve Young's waiting to play.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You don't think that they're not willing to just move off of Purdy? And that's what I'm saying. As fans, it's funny because for 2 years, we've had this quarterback argument back and forth. Trey guy, Jimmy guy, Trey guy, Purdy guy. The reality is this: the 49ers don't give a damn. So don't get attached to any of these guys, not a single one of them, because they can be gone in 4 weeks. They don't care. They genuinely don't care. They haven't had a plan, in my opinion. And I think we talked about it last week, actually. And I said then, I don't believe they've ever had a plan. In my opinion, it's shown. And that article really, for me, validated every feeling that I had about them not having a plan this whole time. So I don't know. It is what it is. And I'll say this though too, just on the personal level, I don't mind if Trey Lance isn't your guy. That is not the issue. The issue is it seems like Trey Lance is the last to know. He really thought he was coming in to compete for something. It's right. Not just that they've, kind of flubbed the fans on this whole thing. I feel like they've done it to Trey Lance as well. Gave him a thought that you're here competing. Reality is he never was. And so now he's wasted his whole offseason. Instead of going to them then and saying, listen, if I'm not going to compete, like move me now. That'll give me an offseason with another team. I can figure it out. Now it's like, well, you didn't want him. He didn't know that. And so, yeah, yesterday he leaves practice, probably requests a trade or a release. But reality is the regular season starts in 12 days. What the hell is he going to do now?
Right.
In response to that, just quickly, I was just going to say that maybe on some level, Trey Lance knew that he wasn't getting a chance to compete because his mantra throughout the spring and summer has been, I just want to have a chance to compete. Almost as if he was suggesting to us, all I want is a chance to compete, and I'm getting a sense that I'm not getting that chance to compete. He might have been saying that, if you come out and you say, Trey's a real smart guy. If you come out and you say, you know what, I'm here and I'm a Niner, but I'm not really being given a chance to compete. You're a complainer, you're crying, you're attacking your own organization, you're hostile, it's viewed very ugly. But if you come out and say in the media 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, hey guys, at the end of the day, I just want a chance to compete. It plays like, and you're getting that chance. But maybe that was his way of telling us indirectly, I'm not getting that chance. And that's because it's like, why would you keep saying you want something that you've gotten? You know what I mean? It's like if you don't, that's the kind of thing you say only if you don't think you're getting a chance, right?
Yeah, you could be right, but if he's not getting that chance, before we get to the super chats, I will say this: if he's not getting their chance, Shanahan and Lynch went on a giant limb, right, by giving up what they gave up and drafting this player and saying this is our quarterback of the future. They are now going on the same giant limb by saying after 4 games, we don't want to see any more of it. We want to see Sam Darnold. We want to see Brock Purdy. This is not what we want to see at this point. To me, how confident, and maybe it's delusion, or maybe it's confidence. How confident do they have to be about Sam Darnold being better than Trey Lance to make this decision, put it out? Well, they didn't want to put it out publicly, but have it go down like this. You got to wonder. It's a really weird situation. It's a really weird situation.
Can I add one thing? Can I add one thing?
For sure.
Is that let's also take a collective breath and just admit publicly the truth, which is it's all about perception. We talk about perception like it's fact. It's not fact. It's perception. The perception is Justin Fields was a great pick by the Bears, and the Bears are one of these teams on the rise. And the perception is, man, the Niners screwed up Trey Lance, and they blew it, and they're debating it nationally. But at the end of the day, look at their numbers. Trey's got the better quarterback rating. Justin Fields has only won 3 more games. He's lost 18 more games than Trey. And yet the perception is, man, the Bears sure got it right.
Well, Krug,
and the other perception is Lance is a bust.
You have to admit that the perception, I think the Lance is a bust is the most difficult part of this, but you have to admit the perception here with the quarterback of the Niners failing is very different from a quarterback losing 18 games with the Chicago Bears, right? Like he got drafted into Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, right? Or no, Ryan Pace was the Trubisky guy. He got drafted into Phil whatever. Whomever. But either way, before Ryan Poles, right? Like there was a different expectation for the guy that got drafted to the team that was 2 years removed from the Super Bowl that we all knew that was good. And that's where I think this failing has garnered a little bit more criticism or maybe a little bit less criticism than a fail of this magnitude usually does. Brother Bob says so far, oh, he's coming straight at you, Krug. He doesn't want to hear it. He says, so far, you're still wrong. He's still here.
You're right.
He's Mike Lynchy.
You're right. Trey's got 9 lives. He's going to be traded, there's so many indications, but he never gets traded. All I'll say is, I don't see things always as they are. I'm not in relation to this. I'm back to our last point with Fields. I don't see things always as they are. I believe what I believe. So you guys know it. I still think Zach Wilson is a good quarterback. Okay. Right. The world right now doesn't. Okay. The world thinks that Fields is a great quarterback. I see a raw prospect who makes a lot of mistakes. The world feels that Trey Lance is a bust. I don't see a bust. I see a young, improving quarterback that's going to get there in a couple of years. He's not ready to play today, but you drafted a super raw quarterback from the SCF's level with hardly any reps and then didn't give him all the reps, so he's not developing at the rate that a lot of us thought he would. But I don't, I'm just not willing to go with the flow on these evaluations. If they want to move off him, let them. If they want to keep him, that's fine. I'd rather them keep him, but I'm not going with the notion that others will just use as a premise, which is that Trey's a bust, can't play. Zach Wilson's a bust, he'll never be good. I just don't. I've seen too many changes and too many quarterbacks evolve to get caught in this group think. So that's my opinion. I just don't believe it. I don't want to insult anybody on the panel or in any of these streams, but I just don't believe that these,
Isn't there a difference though between a player being a bust, and a busted situation, right? Trey Lance has only played 4 games. Like Jesse said, it's premature for us to call him a bust.
Yes.
But guess what? 3 first-round picks and 2 years later, him being the 3rd-string quarterback, this is a busted situation. In whatever capacity.
It's a mismanaged situation that they deserve to take blame for. But all I'm saying is, they may be getting it wrong more this time than they did on draft day. They're getting raked for what they did on draft day. I think they might deserve to get raked for what they're about to do if they trade him.
Okay, that's fair. Ronald Keys says, support to y'all gentlemen, by the way. Thank you. Brother Bob says, Nails, you and I think success is Super Bowl trophies, not taking a pick. Now it's just, it's always been personal.
Yeah, it is.
Jay Mills says, a legend Johnny C was born last night, Larry. I don't know what that means.
There was a guy who, in my live stream, I decided to go with calls last night. You got to go watch my live stream. There was a guy from Vegas at the very end of the 3-hour call-in live stream that kept saying, but Larry. He's like real close. He's like, but Larry. He is such a character that he had such an impact on the audience and the chat the rest of the night that it bled into my chats today. People were like quoting this guy.
That's awesome.
He's a little bit of a legend, Johnny C now from Vegas.
So are we going to be getting a Johnny C. Krug show, Pig and a Pickle sponsored event?
I don't know, but Johnny must have said, but Lair.
Oh, you're Lair.
Yeah, he's calling me Lair. He's but Lair. It's pretty funny.
Papa Phil says, Kyle Shanahan told Grant in Phoenix that Sam and Trey would split number 1 reps. Kyle consistently lies without accountability.
Yeah, and
go for it. You're about to go. I'm not going to
stop. No.
You're talking about the owners' meetings, right? You're talking about the owners' meetings.
Yeah, he's talking about the owners' meetings, I think, in reference to Phoenix.
Here's the thing: is I've got a video
until Purdy got healthy, right?
I've got a video on my channel that I made this morning. I couldn't sleep. You sent me that message at 3 a.m, Vish, my time. I woke up at 6 this morning and read that Kawakami article that you had sent. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, I got to get a video out. I got to get this off my mind. And during that video, I was very, very strong. Very strong. Said the 49ers lied. They lied. And I almost wonder, there's some people, Jimmy Garoppolo is a good example of this, where I think Jimmy Garoppolo has a nervous tick where he smiles when things get uncomfortable. And people like kill him for it. Like, oh, why did he smile when Trey Lance got injured? What's he doing? Trey's getting carted off the field. And it's frustrating to see, but I genuinely don't think like he's malicious with it. I think it's a nervous tick. I just think that Kyle really doesn't know the answer to the questions, and he should because he's the head coach and it's his decisions. But it's like, dude, you literally every new thing that you see, it's like you're enamored by, and you want to go after that, and that's the new thing that you want. And it's like, dude, you just have to make decisions. And it's funny to hear him yesterday, the wording he used when he was on the KNBR or whatever, the radio, and he said something along the lines of like, do you like you have to make a decision, or you can't string it along forever.
Be honest with ourselves.
Yeah, we have to be honest with ourselves. And basically that, to me, that's a message to himself more than anybody. Bro, you're the one that makes the decisions. Just make a decision already.
Yeah, I actually very much agree with that take. Not to spend too much time on this, so I'll move us along here. But I will say I do very much agree with that take. I think because Kyle has that genius label, and I do think there's aspects of his scheme, the way he attacks defenses, the way he sequences plays together, that is genius. But because of that label, I think people think that in everything Kyle does, he has this predetermined grand plan that nobody knows. Like, it's like the media never knows what Kyle's doing, right? That's what they always tell us. Like, Shanahan doesn't talk to anybody. And they point to two examples, the Buckner trade, and nobody knew they were taking Trey Lance, and everybody thought it was Mac Jones, right? But I think the reality is sometimes Kyle is literally just operating in wait and see like the rest of us. And I think this quarterback competition, this quarterback stuff, all the stuff he talked about, yeah, he contradicted the crap out of himself because he was literally wait and see at every point. And I think he was just wait and see on whether Purdy gets healthy. And that's where I tweeted out the clip from one of our shows a month back when Krueg asked us, hey, what's your prediction on the quarterback thing? And I was saying that they're just waffling right now because they're just waiting to see if Purdy gets healthy because they don't want to have to make a decision on this, because if Purdy gets healthy, they don't. He's the starter. And that's kind of what Kyle tried to do. And I guess Jimmy Sexton wasn't having it because the next day he had to make a clear decision after he told the media he wasn't going to the day before. Perhaps we can get into that. I just want to finish reading the rest of these chats. But Krug, what was your thought on that?
I was just going to say, I said, listening to you talk about Kyle, I just was thinking, I'm trying to clarify my thoughts on him and be fair. I think he's a genius offensive play caller. Great play sequencer. I think his dad was an awesome play caller, an awesome play sequencer. In a lot of ways, I think they're very, very much the same. But I don't remember Mike Shanahan developing too many young quarterbacks, and I don't think that's Kyle's strength either. I think that the Niners setup would have been almost a better setup if Lynch had been the top dog and hired Kyle, and not Kyle the top dog and hired Lynch. Because at the end of the day, I think Kyle Shanahan is a brilliant, maybe the best play caller. Him and Reed are in a different level, different stratosphere. And so when people are like, he sucks, he's this, I'm like, you're high, you're crazy, because there's no way they could get anybody anywhere close to as good. Won the game is going on. And as far as managing the team, I think he's also genius. The players like him. They're loose. They play hard. But let's call it straight. His personnel evaluation and having the last word has not been a positive for the organization. It would be better if they had a general manager make as the final call. I think if you trace it back to Jalen Hurd, Dante Pettis, Joe Williams, there's a list there. You can go look at it from 2017. And almost all of their misses are offensive skill position guys that Kyle had a hand in selecting.
With trade-ups, right? Which means that because
conviction. Like, we got to have this guy.
But it's
got to have Joe Williams.
Personnel people have a great understanding of value, right? They never fall in love with one player enough to do the trade-up. A trade-up thing is a coach where it's like, no, I got to have Dante Pettis. I cannot have DJ Chark 10 picks later. Dante Pettis does this thing.
Look at their reaches. I got to have CJ Beathard in the third freaking round. No way.
Hey, by the way,
I've got to have Joe Williams in the 4th round. When I heard Jay Williams go across the screen and I saw
won't be
Utah,
able to sleep at night if we don't get him. That's what he said.
I was going, yes, they got Jamal Williams, BYU. I love Jamal Williams. I loved him. I was like, oh, yes. And then I saw Joe Williams, Utah. I'm like, maybe Utah means BYU. Maybe they're just, and I'm trying to convince myself, so he hit on Kittle. And you could argue maybe he hit on Trent Taylor as offensive players. But then here it is, 2018 draft, year 2. And they go with McGlinchey 9th overall, which is a major reach for a right tackle. It wasn't the worst pick ever, but no upside there. Dante Pettis in the 2nd round? I mean, you got to be kidding.
Trade up.
And then they went defense the rest of the time for the most part. Debo obviously was a phenomenal pick, but Jalen Hurd in the 3rd round? I mean, he's had some reaches for some offensive players, and I'm not saying that he can't pick any guys. They've got a really, really deep roster, and I would imagine he's had a say in a number of these guys. But also the misses are with offensive skill position guys that he handpicked, and I just think that he ought to loosen the reins a little bit and say, man, I'm awesome at this, and you guys are awesome at that, and let's win the Super Bowl as opposed to, what's Kyle's call on all these offensive players. To me, if there's one area where if you say why they haven't gotten over the hill, that's why. That's it.
So I have a couple takes in response to that, which I will give you, but I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do before I talk for 20 minutes, which is read the super chat.
Well, then let me talk for 20. No, I'm just kidding.
808 Niners says this puts them on the clock. They better make the Super Bowl. KS has botched the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship, up 10 in the 4th quarter. But after handling TL, situation is unreal. Waste 3 firsts and not have a plan.
Can I ask both of you this real quick? And I don't know how much you've streamed. It sounds like you quite a bit, Vish.
Yeah.
Somewhere along this path, and there's a lot of spots where you can be frustrated with how they've handled this situation. I feel like in the last 24 hours, the shift, like the overall shift, has gone to I'm pissed at Kyle Shanahan for the first time. Like, you've heard outliers, you've heard some people say it. Usually if it's brought up on a show, it's like, oh, but he's so great and you can't fire him. And who are you going to get? Man, I didn't say fire Kyle once on my show, and it must have come across in my chat 1,000 times. Like, it's everybody I feel right now is at a heightened level. And when that level starts to reach a boiling point with fans and ownership takes notice of it, the clock has started. And I'm not saying that he's even on a hot seat or he should be fired or any of that stuff. But if they don't win a Super Bowl this year,
impatient with him now.
Right. If they don't win a Super Bowl this year, I really think that this is going to be louder than we've ever heard it. Like, I think this might just be the beginning, potentially, of the end of the fan base being 100% behind Kyle, the way that they really, truly have been up until really it felt like yesterday.
Andre has a question for you, Larry. He says, Larry, is Purdy a Shanahan product?
No. I didn't like Brock Purdy that much in college because I thought his arm was underrated or but I'm looking at things from an NFL perspective. I was projecting him to the NFL. In college, he kicked ass. He was awesome. And how good was he? The year he left, they still have the same head coach who's a really good coach. Was it Matt Campbell? Is that his name?
Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
And they went 1-8 in the conference. So, Brock Purdy knows how to play quarterback. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy, but he's got tons of intangibles. He knows how to play quarterback. And I think it can't be undersold that when he went to Jacksonville and worked with those mechanical guys on his motion, and he picked up some velo, it's made him have requisite velocity. And now all of his other traits bubble to the surface, which is the accuracy, the touch, the timing, the smarts, the guts, all that stuff plays now because he's got enough arm.
Velo, I like that.
I know. I'm gonna say Vish likes the velo.
Yeah, Joe Latu is just donating to us. I think he's related to Cameron, and this show has always been very nice to Cam Latu, especially Krueger. He never said anything about cutting Cam Latu, from what I remember. So. LRD off read says, regardless of what happens, doesn't this make you question the character of leadership? I'm a 49er fan regardless, but still feel gross. And I will touch on this because this to me is the element of this, right? So I think a lot of people try to describe this story and try to justify everything that's happened by just talking about the actions while disregarding the human element in all of this. And I do think there is a people element because football interactions are all people interactions as well. And I do think when you look at it from a human element, watching how it's gone down for Trey Lance a little bit, it does, you do really feel, because again, I mentioned this before, his career is kind of in a state of limbo. Like there's not really a place for him to fall into right now. He's the third stringer here. He can't really go anywhere else. There's a big contractual decision coming up on him later. And it's something that means a lot to him, clearly. Like, I mean, he's put in a lot of work even in this offseason to improve, get back healthy and all of that. So I will say from that standpoint, watching this happen to a young human being, it's hard to watch. Yeah.
I think what's interesting with this whole situation, and there's a group of the fan, and not just the 49ers fans. When I say fan base, I mean just football fans that really genuinely could give two rips about any of these players as people. They look at them as robots. They get mad when they don't sign the contracts for the cheap money. They call them greedy. They get mad if they don't fight through injury. Whatever. Like there's no human element for some people, but there is a big group of people that there is a human element for this. And I feel like it's something you've always heard, that it's a cutthroat business. But really, yesterday reflected a huge light on that cutthroat business. And it's almost as if a lot of people were told for the first time that Santa Claus doesn't exist. And they're pissed. They're like, what is this? Like, how do you treat somebody this way?
It wasn't just what they did, Jesse, right? This is the most important thing when you describe to me, like, how people got upset at Shanahan. Yesterday, how it went down was unprofessional, right? Shanahan goes in front of the media on Tuesday. He's adamant when he's asked direct questions about it, saying that, oh, I'm not going to respond to it. We could go back to back with the we could go back and forth with them during the season. We could rotate backups, all of that. And then
that was my question. I said it.
Right. You asked the question.
Right.
Then the next day, we get a report an hour before practice that Sam Darnold is the 49ers backup. Then 30 minutes later, we find out Trey Lance is not at practice. Then they stick Fred Warner in front of the media. He doesn't know what to do answering questions about this. That was not fair to him. And finally, it all culminates with Shanahan doing pre-recorded answers on KNBR to try and deliver this message. I thought it was handled awfully. It was handled unprofessionally. And that's where I took greater offense to it, honestly, because to be honest, this was not a decision that I didn't expect. I actually said on Monday, me and Rob Guerrero were going back and forth on it. I said, to me, it looks like they're going to name Sam Darnold the backup. And that's what ended up happening. But what I didn't expect is for it to happen like this. What happened the last 2 days was terrible.
Matt Mayoko, guys, and Vish, that's I kind of agree with you. I mean, on one hand, I kind of the bottom line person who knows the NFL says, look, this kid signed a 4-year contract for $34 million. He's going to be just fine. This is all just talk. I mean, at the end of the day, he's getting paid very, very well, and it's just a wild business. But on the other hand, when you look at Matt Mayoko, went on KNBR today, and he said, here was his quote. He said, why the secrecy? Why couldn't they be proactive and create their own narrative? They created way more drama than needed to be created just by the way they decided to clam up and not say anything yesterday. And it kind of plays right to what you were saying. And I'm not sure if there was some indecision or lack of how they wanted to go forward. But I mean, there's a lot of people watching. It's a major, major story. The NFL doesn't have tons of subplots at this point in the year, and this has now become a primary subplot. So, and how they handled this, they painted a picture of, hey, we're going to have a quarterback competition this summer. It'll be decided on the field. And it sounded very fair. Okay, now camp is officially over. So we asked, when are you going to announce your guy? And they said, hey, you know what? Maybe I said, before Pittsburgh. Yep, right before Pittsburgh. Or you could juggle it back and forth. Yep. And I just kind of wonder, guys, and I would love to know your thoughts on this. Do you think that it's possible after they said that they got some pushback from somebody? Trey's agent, Sam's agent, Brandon Allen's agent. Because I get a picture, like in Brandon Allen's case, is that I think that they signed him to a 1 year $1.08 million contract, so $1,080,000, which is, and it's above the minimum. So it was it's above the minimum for him would have been like $840 or something like that, $850, something like
Good
that.
to know.
So. Why did he sign here? He didn't sign here to be on the practice squad. So I'm guarantee you that if his agent, this guy was number 2 in Cincinnati. This guy could easily be number 2 in a lot of spots. He could probably be number 3 for like 2/3 of the teams in the league. So the Niners are not going to wait till the end of the cut down through his agent and just cut him loose. I'm sure maybe right about now he said, hey, when there's 5 days to go before the deadline, if you want me, great. If not, cut my guy free and he'll go get a league minimum job somewhere else, and no harm, no foul. The fact that they kind of came out of nowhere and were like, hey, Sam Darnold's the guy. What was the timing on that? I wouldn't doubt that if they had to tell Brandon Allen's agent, hey, you got 5 days to create a market. That might have been a promise that Lynch made. So there's just a lot of moving parts to this thing, but I don't get the secrecy. And why not just come out and kind of, as Matt said, create your own story and say what you want to do and set your own parameters. Instead, they put a couple of their players out there and they looked a little uncomfortable. And it wasn't a disaster by any means, but it was, probably should have been the general manager.
Jesse, you want to continue on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say my initial thought, and that thought hasn't changed. Krueger asked, was there some interference from somewhere else? Yeah, Trey Lance went to them and said, get rid of me at all costs. I'm done with this. 100%. Larry, to me, the reason
you just think that, Jesse, right?
I think that. Yeah. This is not, of course we haven't heard this, but I think everything leads up to it. Like let's do some tea leaf reading and you tell me how I do, Larry, because you're the expert. So they said what they said the day before. All of a sudden, 15 minutes before practice, whatever it was before practice, it's like, oh shit, he basically told us he's not going to be here today. He's out. Well, let's release that Sam Darnold's QB2. We got to tell everybody because everybody's going to wonder why Trey Lance isn't here. And then we'll spin it as we gave him the day off. Okay. Yeah, that sounds logical. But then today, I think I got the answer to the question. John Lynch was asked about have they shopped Trey Lance since February based off of a report that was given by some national person.
Diana Rossini, right.
Diana Rossini. And he answered that question very directly.
Way, reported earlier by Mike Florio, too, that they shopped Trey Lance for Kirk Cousins during the Combine. Krueg, you brought that up. We talked about that at the time.
Well, not to involve me, but what the hell, I'm here. I kept maintaining to Hensley that they were going to try to shop him by the draft. That was our bet. And then when they didn't trade him at the draft, it's like, see, they had no plans to trade him. Well, I mean, what do you believe? Do you believe they were shopping him or do you believe they weren't? I kind of believe they were.
Well, they kind of said that they were.
They said they were. They admitted that, right?
But either way, John Lynch answered that question today very directly. No, that's not true. If I had to answer to every national media person, I wouldn't be able to have time to do my job. Let them run wild with the narrative. That's absolutely not true. But then he was asked the same question, but from the other side. Did Trey and his team request a trade? All of a sudden, he's not able to answer that question directly. He says, Trey's in the building. We're ready to get to work. You were willing to answer it one way and not the other. That tells me that, yes, he came to you and said, I want out at all costs. Get me out of here, and I'm not practicing today. We're not doing this. That's the way that I believe that it went down. And ultimately, the reason he's back is because he doesn't have any leverage. He's on a rookie contract. If he doesn't play, he loses money. He looks like a malcontent, even though he's probably very deserved in these thoughts. And he also doesn't accrue a year, so he has no leverage. He has to play, so now he's back.
Yeah, so the only reason I disagree with that is because I think the timing for Trey Lance to do it doesn't make sense. Because why would he choose August 23rd of all days to finally decide
Because
that
he
he's
thought
done
he
with
was
this?
competing until he wasn't.
So that's my point. I think my interpretation of this sequence of events is similar to yours, but I have a few different theories on the details. I think similar to you, Shanahan went and said this, but now this is where Krueg's theory comes into this because I agree with Krueg's theory, and this was Grant's original theory. Lance and Darnold are represented by the same agent, Jimmy Sexton and CAA, powerful quarterback agent, right? I think Jimmy Sexton called the team and was like, yo, we're not going to do this game of limbo with both my clients. You pick one of them. I think Kyle forced to pick the next day. I don't think he was in a position, said, okay, I'm going to pick Sam. I think Trey was like, wait, what? You're going to pick Sam? I'm out of here. What the hell? And he left. And then that's when they did the spin job of, we want him to stay here. He was upset, so we gave him the day off, blah, 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 all of that. I think it stems from a sequence of events of what he said. Because it's odd to me that within 24 hours of him saying specifically that he didn't want to reveal the backup quarterback, he revealed it. And to me, somebody had to have put pressure for him to reveal it, causing the other chain of events. And the only person I could see invested in Trey and Sam enough to need that answer is the agent that represents both of them, Jimmy Sexton.
Do you think Trey requested a trade after that or a release?
Yeah. I think he left. I think him leaving is very clear indication of how he felt. Joe Latu, by the way, his comment was, now they have to face the fact he has no value either way. How can you reconcile SMH? Joe, I think we've done a pretty good job talking through everything around your question, so we will move to LRD off-road. He said, regardless... Oh, wait, we did this, LRD. Yep. Ronald Keys, moving along. How ain't Kyle is fixated with an injury-prone player? Or... All right, I don't know what
he's fixated with injury-prone players. Basically,
what is NT, dog? Somebody help me with NT.
I don't know.
For Jimmy, Lance, Kinlaw, every running back in Shan era, and with relative contenders, and so I think he's complimenting Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch again for being a contender despite the mistakes they've made.
This is like drinking those Lucky Loggers and you're trying to interpret the cap. You know, have you seen those?
This is a great way.
I think it meant slide down the slide backwards. Yeah. What do you think?
Tyler Carrisley says, Jessie, did we lose respect from Kyle Shanahan, or did we lose respect from Kyle Shanahan from this massive lie? I think he's asking, did you lose respect for instead of from?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of knew it was a shady business anyways. And this is just me being transparent in this moment. There's a lot of things that you hear that go on behind the scenes that you don't hear when you're just a fan watching the games. And as you hear that, you kind of get jaded towards it a little bit. I'm 100% a Niners fan. I'm going to continue to root for them, but some people you kind of stop fully rooting for because you figure out who they are behind the scenes. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan is as a person, but definitely it jades me a little bit for sure.
See, I mean, I just don't see anything nefarious going on here. I mean, this is Shanahan's quote. We gave Lance a big chance to win that 2 spot this year. It was a very tough fight, but in the long run, Sam ended up winning it. Okay, well, that's either right or wrong. Right? I mean, it's like one or the other. And to me, I think it was very, very close. But I mean, if he wants to say Sam was better, I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. I mean, it's his interpretation. Now,
right.
He's been wrong. He's been wrong at times, but doesn't mean he's wrong here. He could be wrong. He might not be wrong. But he made a decision. Now, the question is, he may have made the decision when they had Darnold's agent on the phone, 3 weeks before he signed the contract with the Niners, or he may have decided today.
Right. Fair enough. Mike.
I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong for taking what Kawakami's saying as gold, but it does seem like he's pretty spot on a lot. And the way that he talked about it while also interviewing Kyle Shanahan is that they knew a year ago. And until
he described it as a buildup. It felt
right.
like they were building up to get here.
Again, they don't ever have a plan. They just know that they're ready to move off of somebody. They were ready to move off of Jimmy, so they went after every quarterback they could to move off of Jimmy. Then it was like, oh shit, we kind of need Jimmy, so we kept him and all these other things. And then it's like, well, we don't like Lance, so we're going to move on from him at all costs, up to and including bringing back Jimmy, who we didn't want just a year ago. It's like, okay, like it literally says, I don't know if Garoppolo would have accepted that, meaning would he come back? But where is it at? General. But the idea was out there. The 49ers were looking for somebody to start in 2023, not named Lance. So they don't know who at this point. They don't know how good Purdy is yet. But they were already made
not
the
ready to
decision.
go into
It wasn't going to be Lance. So whoever that was going to be, was it going to be Kirk Cousins? Was it going to be somebody you draft? Was it going to be Jimmy Garoppolo? We don't know yet. We just know that we're ready to move on from Lance. Once you get to that point with a player, there is no legitimate competition. That's the way that I see this situation. So,
and that's where my point about the 2022 offseason, I think there's something that happened, right? And I think that's where we were not, I guess, told the full story of how it was looking at that point. Brother Bob says,
by the way, I'm fine if that's the conclusion you've come to. It's not the conclusion that's frustrating. It's the hanging on to him, knowing that's your conclusion and making him think that's not your conclusion. That's where the mess up comes in.
Right. I absolutely agree. Brother Bob says, Vish, spreadsheets. All right. Sorry, Brother Bob. Can't read that one. I got to look out for my boy, Larry. Flav says, Trey has always lacked poise and calmness to me. Larry talked about it a lot too. Errors of omission/commission. JT's breakdown of Trey/Sam shows the same thing. I think Trey drives Kyle nuts. All of this can be fine, but something led Kyle to draft Trey, right? And 4 games later, he's telling you he doesn't want Trey anymore. And that's where I'm kind of confused in all of this. Like, you can put down Trey as much as you want, but to me, Trey is who Trey kind of was expected to be when he was drafted. And it feels like the Niners got Trey and they realized that, oh, wait, this is kind of a square peg round hole situation for us. And they kind of just strung him along this year until they made sure their situation was okay, because they knew that without a healthy quarterback, they had him on roster for fairly cheap, and they might have had to turn to him if things went differently this offseason. That's where stringing along, Jesse, I think part of the stringing along was there was a point in this offseason where they had to keep him just due to health. And they were still integrating Darnold, so they didn't know how they felt about that. And so that's where he was kind of in a stuck situation. Dale Barber says, Purdy's dad, clearly talking to Jesse. Do you still believe we will destroy Pittsburgh week 1 if Bosa's deal isn't signed in time?
Oh, if they don't have Bosa.
No, I mean, I think it's going to be really, really tough. I got to be honest, guys. I think this quarterback conversation is awesome, and I love talking about it, and we all love making money on it. But at the end of the day, they have a quarterback. It's Brock Purdy. He's going to be fine. It's like, that's not the issue. They can win games with the quarterback they have, even though the Trey thing has been a soap opera. But their defensive end depth could prevent them from winning games, in my opinion, based on the practices.
You want to know what I think? You want to know what the other story is, and we're going to probably get a conclusion here as soon as Tuesday. The Eagles are real serious contenders for Jonathan Taylor right now, and if they get him, I don't know how you look at the 49ers as the favorites in the NFC
on the Eagles,
anymore.
I'll tell you that. If they get Jonathan Taylor, I'll stop hating.
I did a video the other day that I really believe that, and go watch it at the Krueg show when that stream is over, of course.
Thank you, Krueg.
that I think the Niners ought to go after Jonathan Taylor. I mean, if you looked at the what they're asking for, they're talking about, probably going to wind up getting a second round pick. The Niners have moved so many picks. They're inside their Super Bowl window. I'd get him. He only makes $5 million on the cap. So you don't give him the contract extension this year. You let him
do you
go.
think
Let
you
him
can
sit.
trade? You think you can trade for him without? Because they've let
I
him
don't think
seek a
so.
trade, which means to me,
I've
him
heard the
seeking
reports,
A trade,
you gotta
which means
say-
he seeks a contract, right?
Yeah, no, he wants a contract, but I'm saying, I mean, you give him a mini extension or not a mini extension, a mini raise for this year if you could change it. But otherwise, he's got a $5 million cap hit this year. You've got $5 million under the cap right now. You'll have more when you do the Bosa deal. I would do it just to keep him from Dallas. I think he's going to go there. Or and now you're saying Philly. There's been talk that Kansas City is going to jump in. So you don't want that guy there. This is a franchise back. It's one of the best backs in football.
Agreed.
They have enough easily to make that deal. They got a whole stable of running backs. They could say to the Colts, who will need a running back, by the way, if they move him. So they're going to get a running back back. Who do you want? Take your pick of our non-McCaffrey backs. You can give them a second-round pick and another player, or a conditional pick in 2025. They could make that deal, and I'd make that deal just as you guys kind of suggested, because they're in a very select company. If you go back and look at their last time they won the bowl, they had major weapons, and when they won it before that, they had even better weapons. And the teams that win right now have special offensive players. And like, I'm watching TDP and Mason, and they're talented. They're not special. Jonathan Taylor's special. And I'd make the accommodations and make that happen, because the guys who handle the football are the guys who win you the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so real quick, actually, you know what? I'm going to let that go, Krug. I'm not going to respond to it. We got to move the show along a little bit. No offense. We'll come back to this one.
No
I think that's a good topic for maybe next week, just because I don't think anything is going to happen with Jonathan Taylor this week, at least. But Brother Bob says nails is, I think, nailing on a doorknob, hammering on a doorknob, and PP. Okay.
He's letting us know that PP is not picking a pickle.
Yeah.
Brother
Flav
Bob.
says definitely making it as they go. Definitely making it up as they go and trying to make it look intentional. In reality, the only thing they've known is Trey isn't good, and they've done everything possible not to admit it until yesterday.
I mean, here's the bottom line, though, on this stuff. You don't know how people are going to react when things get announced, things get said. It's a volatile business. They're competing. Who knows? Maybe that question set somebody off. Maybe there could be some timing that we're not going to ever know about.
That's fair.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that go on. I mean, look at the Fred Warner quote I put out on Twitter. I asked him about it, and he's like, "Hey, man, there's a lot of things that go down in the NFL, that don't ever make it to the public." So, it's just, don't be surprised.
All right, I'm going to run through these super chats and we'll call it a show, because my guy Jesse needs to wake up tomorrow at 6:15 a.m. Promise, next time when we're on Krug Show, we'll be back to our usual 2.5 hours to 3 hours. We'll make sure we're warming you up for NFL Sundays, making sure you can sit through us so that you can sit through Daryl Johnston and Chris Myers together. So Snooty Toots says, how about Kyle and Lynch doing pre-recorded interviews and throwing Fred out to face the reporters? PR 101. Yeah, that was not a good look.
Well, once again, you can bang on them for that, but we're talking about potentially a trade. You got all kinds of people. You're going to open yourself up to a bunch of questions. The media is going to box you in. You're going to have to
But they didn't have to put Fred out there. They could have.
I know, but you're in the midst of a if they're going to trade him, let's just say you're in the midst of negotiations. Would we all agree that that's the case? I mean, if the plan is to trade him, the roster deadline's Tuesday, cut down. They're obviously in the midst of trading somebody. I don't know. I mean, let's just say Ned Coletti, Brian Sabian, all those years covering the Giants, they would talk all the time. They'd give you all kinds of stuff. But if it was like 24 hours before the trade deadline, they would not sit there and give you a lot. So
yeah, but to Vish's point, then just cancel it all. Don't put your players out there to be in the front line.
I agree. I was in the room. It was awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Desai says, knock on wood, but what if you have worst case scenario and Purdy goes down, Darnold comes in and offense sucks? Do you think they give Trey a shot? Yeah, I think they would give Trey a shot.
If Purdy goes down, Darnold comes in. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what makes this. None of this is super etched in stone. I mean, we all saw it, and we saw it with our own two eyes. These guys were comparable. Okay, neither's Joe Montana. Neither's going to be bounced out of the league. they're very comparable players. I think they're different.
Neither
but they're
are Joe
comparable.
Montana, but they do have Steve Young. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
He
That's right.
says, force bro signed to us. That for money is 49er owned till we say I'm team first. You're an asset or that. See, I don't like talking about human beings like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There is a big group of people that genuinely don't look at them as humans. They don't. They make a lot of money. Everything's perfect. It's like, okay, I guess.
Jordan Steers says people are treating it like it's a political debate and there's only two extremes to this I agree with. Well said, Jordan Steers. Although X content, it's not good to begin with. That's just a bad place to receive content. YouTube content, the non-political debate, you can find it on the Krueg Show, Last Second Sports, here at the Vish Kumaran Show. You can find it actually, you could probably find it everywhere on YouTube. But I do think that it is gone a little bit extreme for sure everywhere. But I think that's the nature of the conversation. And I don't think we're dealing with extreme people. I think we're dealing with a conversation that has forced people to take extreme sides. Josue Rodriguez. Oh, my bad. Josue Ramirez. That's why I took his name out because I said it wrong. If you guys were the head coach, who would you put as quarterback 1, quarterback 2, quarterback 3, based on everything you know about all three quarterbacks? Just curious. Larry Krueger.
Well, I mean, this is easy. You go with Purdy for sure as 1. I personally would go with Trey Lance as 2 and Sam Darnold as 3. Trey Lance, I think, has better playmaking ability than Darnold, has a little bit better arm. Yes, he's more of a wild card, but the talent is undeniable. You can see it, and it just needs reps to blossom. And to me, if your quarterback's, you got to think of it logically. If your quarterback's out of the game, you probably need a playmaker who can give your offense some energy and some life. I think he's throwing more accurate than I saw last summer. I would go with Lance 2 and Darnold 3 and try to get a 7th round pick for Brandon Allen.
Jessie.
Yeah. Oh, Brandon Allen's even a part of the conversation. Yeah. I mean, if the goal, let me say this, I'll just tell you who I think the best quarterbacks are in order. The best quarterbacks right now at this very moment in order are Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold. So that's who I think the best quarterbacks are. I personally would still really want to see what Trey Lance is going to be. And the only way you're going to see that is by playing him. And I feel like the 49ers are good enough to make the playoffs regardless of who they start at quarterback out of those 3 that I just mentioned. And so I'm at least going to see it from Trey Lance for a few weeks before I give up completely. And so for me, who would I start? I would start Trey Lance to see if there's anything there. I would have a short leash on him. I would go to Purdy and feel comfortable about it. But who's the best right now? I don't think that there's a debate. It's Purdy, and then I think it's Lance, and I think it's Darnold.
Papa Phil says he also said QB4 gets 0 reps after. Brother Bob says, Vish, read the chats. Content creation paid off. I got more. Brother Bob, you better be there next week. You can't just come to our shows and then not show up to the Krueg Show and face Larry at his home field advantage when Larry's got his guys in the chat coming at you in honor of Larry. Cinnamon Kiss, Sin, good friend, by the way. What's up, Sin? Says, remember Sam's quarterback coach early on said Sam was going to be quarterback 1 when Purdy's health was uncertain. Yeah, I do remember this. I was the one who brought attention to that podcast clip because I was listening to Jordan Palmer on that Chris Long podcast. And yes, I do remember this. Official B&A Music says, is Kyle Shanahan a genius or an idiot savant? Ronald Keys says, be honest, Trey to XFL B.
I don't even know what the hell.
B100.
Yeah, I got it.
B100 I got, but I'm stuck at BRGTM.
Yeah, I don't know what that middle part is.
Come on, Krug.
I don't know.
Be honest, Trey to the XFL bargain tomorrow, something.
back to California.
Oh, back
would
to
be
California.
100.
Bring Tom back to California, maybe? Is he talking about Tom Brady?
Yeah,
I don't know.
bring Tom. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
do
what.
agree
Hey,
with
that's
bring-
what I'm going with.
Yeah, me too. Good comment. I
Wow.
agree. Bring Tom back. Flav says 100% if Lynch was calling shots, no way in hell would Trey have ever been drafted. Probably would have stayed with Jimmy, got Parsons, would have a ring.
But see, that's where I have the issue. You can't predict. Again, if Parsons gets drafted here, we don't know that it works out. We don't know if he gets injured. We don't.
And we can't
And-
really
and-
say exactly how good or bad these guys are at drafting. The general manager drafted both Solomon Thomas and Nick Bosa.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're talking about the best guy and a guy who kind of bombed. So
Look,
it's like you hit some, you win.
And
You're
Nick
gonna hit,
Bosa was
you're
the
gonna
biggest
miss.
no-brainer of all
It's-
time. Like, let's be.
Right. It's to
Yeah,
me,
no
it's
question.
less to me. Who cares really? Because you're gonna miss on picks. I get that. Like I don't like when people say you're gonna miss on picks as if it's an excuse for missing on a picks. It's part of what happens. Doesn't mean that you're actively trying to do that, but you understand that's part of the process. I think the bigger issue with the Trey Lance pick was the process that led them to take the Trey Lance pick, right? Starting in 2020. And I'm not going to do this again because I detailed this on my previous show. Me and Rohan literally spent an hour starting at 2020 and going through every quarterback inflection point and talking about how they were just pivoting decision by decision when they couldn't get this quarterback, when they couldn't get this quarterback. But it culminates when you trade up a month before the draft and you're not sure who you're going to pick. Like Krug. Kevin Krueger walks up to you right now and he says, Larry, I want to spend $100 on the Krug show. What's the first question you ask him?
What the fuck? Why?
What are you going to spend it for, right?
Right.
Why? What do you think Jed York was told when he said yes to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spending 3 firsts for? Do you think they had an answer to that question? Because they admitted they didn't have an answer to that question when they traded up. How do you say yes to that?
I mean, I think if you're smart, you say yes to that because what you really do as the owner, you make one decision. You hire football people and then you stay out of the way and you support them when they say they, want the support as far as financially. They asked for money this year for Hargrave. I think, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the way it's done.
But you're ruining my point, so it's making me kind of sad.
Sorry.
You are right, though. You are right. Brother Bob says, you guys hear the nose O-line coach to I got this one. You see the nose followed by the line because of Chris Forrester's recreational activities in Miami. That's Brother Bob. That's fantastic work.
Going deep. Deep.
Anything good? That's Krug. Anything good from Chris Forrester?
As far as what about how their line looks?
Yeah,
I mean, they love Il Manning. They love Il Manning. They think Ilm
he looks good, doesn't he? He's a very fluid athlete. Brad Graham's posted a couple of nice clips that forced me to go back and watch him. I saw you talking about him as well.
Well, this is the question. I mean, to me, Feliciano looks a little slow. I mean, they beat him inside for a pass rush. He's broad, but he's more of a center. So maybe Manning, Zakel. I think Zakel is a guy that's kind of ascending. So we'll see. He had a bad first game against the Raiders, and I don't want to put too much into that, but he definitely didn't look good in that first game.
HR says, based on the way the 49ers have used high-end picks, all Trey cost him was 3 more busts. Kinlaw, Thomas, McGlinchey, and he doesn't even want us to say McGlinchey's decent. He lets us know that he's trash. Wow. That is just harsh.
High standards, man.
HD8359 says, what if Trey balls out and Darnold lays a duck tomorrow? When Trey came in last game, fans went wild. Man, what if?
Doesn't
what
matter.
If, right?
They
what
decided
if?
a year ago.
What if? Well, what if the next Thursday we will have so much to talk about? That's what if. And the NFL season wouldn't even have started.
It is dynamic, though. That's the NFL. I mean, what if he did play some incredible half of football, threw for 4 touchdowns, ran for 100 yards, and just looked awesome? I mean, seriously. I mean, I don't care if it's preseason. I don't care if a guy looks awesome. That that makes you more interested, but that also makes other teams more interested. So Friday night should be interesting.
I'm calling up Disney Channel. If that happens, I'm calling up Disney Channel in that moment and telling them to create the autobiography of the little kid from Marshall, Minnesota. Because what a story that would be. Andre Rodriguez says, Jesse, what team would want Trey? I don't think anyone.
Yeah, I mean, right now is the problem, but that's I feel like that is illogical thinking because who cares? If he wants out and you don't want him, then let him out and let them figure it out. Like, that's not
Right.
for the 49ers to decide or us to decide. Let him decide that.
Right. Brother Bob says,
We don't mix. We don't mix, man.
you guys are going to run into one at Pig in the Pickle, run into each other at one of these days. Brother Bob
Stay
says,
out of my
Papa
hood, man.
Phil says PP is an ongoing sentence. Oh my God, that is funny though. Human ongoing sentence. Krug, you could put that on a shirt and sell that. That is a line. Put that on a
Coming
shirt
after
and
me in
sell
the
that.
Vish house tonight.
I know. It's just Brother Bob. It's personal between you guys. You guys have this
Seriously.
rivalry. Flav says, is Trey more likely to fire his agent for letting Sam come to take his job, or his agent more likely to fire Trey for making it clear he's a QB3?
Wow. There's
I
a
don't know
lot
how to
there.
answer this.
There's
Yeah.
a lot there.
Brother Bob answers for us. He says Sexton gets more if Sam plays because of incentives. Ronald Keys, he understood how difficult of a time we were in having interpreting his slang. And so he says, are y'all doing a call? It'll be easier. I have to do a call-in show sometime. I do want to do one. I'll create it. When Jesse went through his thing all that time ago with his first channel, it kind of spooked me to ever do a call-in show. But I do feel like we miss out on some really good interaction by not doing it. So I will do one soon.
Just got to be
and I know
prepared.
Krug did one for 3 hours yesterday with good old Johnny C. So
Oh, it takes a while. Yeah, I try to do one once a week, but sometimes I don't get to it.
J. Rob Espino, thank you for $2. That's very kind. Dale Barber says, if the defense isn't top 5 this year, are you comfortable with maybe the offense having to carry us?
Sure.
Krug is.
That's an interesting one. I'll say this: Ayuk is unfreaking believable.
Really?
Yes.
How about Debo?
I mean, if you hadn't been in Niner camp, and I'm getting on a plane, I got to go somewhere. You got 30 seconds.
You got to see Ayuk.
Ayuk has caught everything. He's attacking every ball in the air like it's personal. It's awesome. He's on a totally different level. I've seen him go up. I mean, Jesse was there. He's gone up 10 feet in the air.
Now?
What's
can
that?
You rank based on training camp and based on what you see? Can you rank the CMC, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle quadruplet?
Oh, I mean, Brock loves going to the tight end, so I think Kittle will probably always have pretty good numbers. But to me, Kittle's been pretty good at times, but not that impressive. I mean, not that, he doesn't stand out. What stands out is that Debo's in the best shape that he's maybe ever been in, fast, and then Ayuk's on a freaking mission, and McCaffrey looks prime for his career years. So, and they're all on the same football team. So that right there, I think, is going to fuel the 49ers on that side of the ball. Everybody, and then you got Ronnie Bell and Tay Martin. If those guys make the team, those guys have, you guys were, they got ball skills and they can make plays and make catches. So they got a hell of a
even Conley did his best Ayuk impression quite a bit in training camp though too. Like
Conley looks good, doesn't he?
To the point where people were tweeting out that Brandon Ayuk was making catches, and I'm like, oh, that was Conley, but close
because of the hair, and they have
Conley,
that kind of long.
Conley has shown something in this camp for sure. I mean, he's super athletic and fast.
49 Glory says, after the past 7 years, I don't think Kyle Shanahan can be trusted with any quarterback decisions, especially Sam versus Trey.
You know what's interesting about this is that I don't even know if Kyle Shanahan would argue with you, because, and I feel like we've touched on every topic in the last month and a half we've done shows together or whatever.
Right.
It shows how deep we go, but we brought up the conversation about when he was coming here, how he didn't want to end up like his dad, and he wanted to go to a team that had an established quarterback. And I think that's him. I mean, kudos to him for potentially admitting then and there that, look, I don't know how to go get quarterbacks. I don't want to spend time developing them. I just give me somebody that's already good and I'll make them the best they've ever been. And it's not that he doesn't want to have that guy. He just doesn't know how to make it happen.
He said, I played 2 bones. Read 'em. Sheets was Lombardi. Duh. No PP either. And
Yeah,
I
what the
actually
heck?
agree.
He's
I think that was a
relenting.
good point, Jesse, too. I think that was a really good point. Muncharficus says Kyle is playing 4D chess. Tank his value. Trey stays and is my gosh, I did that. You did not deserve that Munch. But he says Trey tank his value. Trey stays in his 3rd string so he can play in December when the other quarterbacks are hurt.
Yeah, that is 4D chess.
Brother Bob says
Kyle Shanahan equals who?
batch. I don't know what batch means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either.
But he says you're carrying water for the organization. It just gets me that he puts the little water cup after carrying water. Digital Drew, he says, Vish, you do good work. Here's some cash. Thank you. How large of a factor was the agent in all of this? Trey Sam agent. Could Sam have been told he's the number 2? He told the agent and it started all of this tinfoil hat. Wow. I think that's possible.
What Vish, isn't that kind of what your thought is?
Yeah, but I think this kind of solves the issue of John Lynch saying that they didn't know that it was going to come out, right? If Sam was told, Sam told his agent, and then Trey was told. The only thing is, if Trey was told by the agent and not by the 49ers, then I have a very low opinion of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And I don't think that, of all things, I don't think either of them are scared of confrontation to have that particular conversation. I wouldn't expect that from them. So I wouldn't expect that Trey Lance got that information from his agent and not from them. If he did, it's pretty ugly. Yeah, that's a bad look.
I wonder, my question is this. I wonder if they would like him to, he's going to say to them what he would like. He doesn't have any real leverage in the situation.
Right.
But he could say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be here. Trade me. And that could force them to their hand if they want to comply with him, or they could say, no, we're going to do what we want to do. To me, I'm wondering how that is playing out behind the scenes.
No, you're right. It's interesting. Mark Salas says Kyle was at least disingenuous regarding Lance. Yeah, he was a little bit. Dale Barber says, doesn't it feel weird that the 49ers seem to hedge on all their QBs? Where else do you see this in the league?
They definitely do hedge. That they seem to do. They definitely seem to hedge a little bit. I think
going back to Alex Smith. I mean, how about Alex Smith and Cap?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see it with franchises that don't have franchise quarterbacks.
Okay,
yet.
Here's my thing though. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, I kind of get hedging it. And that's where sometimes I don't necessarily mind the 49ers decisions at quarterback. Once they have the quarterbacks that they have, I think they kind of make the best of the situation year to year, the best of who they have. I think the bigger issue I have is the process in creating the room year after year. That's what feels a little bit out of touch to me. But Brother Bob says, I'm here. He doesn't even want to hear me saying, you better show up at the Krueg show next week. He said, my credit card's paid off. BP hour.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. Bring it.
Ronald Keys says, Trey Lance to XFL, bring back team to California. Great storyline.
Oh, okay. The team. Bring back the team, not Tom.
Yeah, not Tom. I liked it better if you said Brady, though. Flav says, if they didn't take Parsons, they could have thrown a dart and chosen better. Even if they took nobody at 12, it would have been better at taking up. He's kind of not wrong, right? Like, even if you take nobody at 12, at least you have a first-round pick in 2022 and 2023. And, the contribution, because Trey Lance hasn't played, has been pretty much almost non-existent from him outside of, he did win a very important game when he started the Houston game, right? They needed that game to make the playoffs, so he does deserve absolute credit for that. But, yeah, it's been a little bit.
Here's one thing I wonder, just personnel-wise, if you really did love Sam Darnold, he was available a lot in there. You could have taken Rashawn Slater, and you would have had, a premier tackle.
You know
And
what's funny,
if you
Krueg?
really love Darnold that much, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Jesse mentioned it earlier in the show, and I think you might have missed it. But that 2021 offseason, guess who was traded that same offseason for a future second, a future sixth, and a fourth round pick?
Who?
Sam Darnold.
Carolina traded for
That's
one
right. That's right.
Sam Darnold.
Yep.
And what's the irony that 2
he
years
fetched
later?
3 picks.
Yeah. But what's the irony that 2 years later they give up 3 ones, whatever, for Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold, who was available that same offseason for far cheaper, is now the quarterback that beat him out? What a weird situation, right?
Yeah, the
Very
49ers
strange.
seem to have no shame in that. I mean, it's not just Sam Darnold, but the thought
Yeah,
was the original trade was for Deshaun Watson, who they didn't even really scout. So it's like, oh, you didn't scout him 2 years earlier. You screwed up, but you're willing to go trade it the whole farm and then pay him a crap ton of money to bring him in before his legal stuff. So it's like, at least they're okay with having egg on their face in certain situations. You got to applaud that. And that's not even me being sarcastic. That's just me being like, oh, that's actually commendable.
All right, this one is again just personal. Brother Bob, we need some content from you too. This can't just be all just you versus Larry, okay? Jesse and I need to be involved in this show too. All right, so include us in these comments. Don't just be talking about PP, please. Thank you. Or pause, please. Flav says if he wants out, let him out. You mean cut him? You want to waste another $5 million on him? They've paid Trey $10 million per complete game. He's been compensated very well. Shouldn't waste another dime on him.
We know how Flav feels.
Yeah, I mean, Flav, I can pull up a comment from you literally like 2 months ago where you're like, cut him already, get him off this roster. I'm tired of it. And now you want to just like, it's like, bro, at some point, like, just give up. Like, you didn't like the pick. You blame him for being picked. You blame him for not being up to your standards. Then you blame him for wanting out, and they should keep him just to ruin his life. Like, bro, what the hell did he do to you? I'm like, seriously, this is very personal. I feel like between you, it's, do you know him? And we don't know about, like, what happened there? I'm curious.
HR says, Vish, USC QBs are overhyped and underwhelming. And I think the conversation around Caleb Williams, by the way, I know the three of us kind of nerd out before draft time, and we'll have plenty of time to do that. Right now, we're heading towards the actual season. But I will say that this is going to be a fun narrative to observe during this draft period, because I guarantee you one of the negatives on Caleb Williams, and there won't be many, will be the history of USC quarterbacks prior to him. And yeah,
they're saying he's automatically going 1.
I would tend to think that.
That's what we thought about Trevor Lawrence, which, by the way, he did end up going 1. But remember, like, how tight they tried to make it sound between, first it was him and Fields, then they drug down Fields, and then it was him and Zach Wilson. You had Sims coming out saying Zach Wilson, he'd take Zach Wilson over Lawrence. Right. Like, yeah, it seems clear cut, and it probably should be, and it probably will end up being that. But the waters will get muddied at some point. They always do.
Brother Bob is now upset with me. He says, last money to you, Vish. At least Pig in a Pickle reads my supers. You know what, Brother Bob? I will say that is a fair point. You're right. I should have done a better job reading it. That's on me. But you know what? At least you were finally able to compliment Larry. So if it takes me, getting upset at me for you to say a nice thing about Larry 7 shows into us doing this, then guess what? I guess this is worth it.
I'm getting a restraining order.
Casey Cold says Wilson has 20 starts of poor play, thrown under the bus, got benched by Mike White, only costed the Jets 1 first, in New York treats him better than the 49ers treat Trey Lance. Well, they did hand him the backup job. They didn't throw him in a competition.
Lance to the Jets for Wilson. Would you guys do it?
No.
I don't think the Jets would do it.
I wouldn't.
So now we have 2. Jesse saying no, he wouldn't do it, and you're saying the Jets wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Jets would do it either.
Yeah.
Because Because Aaron Rodgers is the perfect mentor for Zach Wilson specifically. Like Zach Wilson was drafted to essentially be Aaron Rodgers, and then they've built the relationship. They had a relationship when Zach came into the league. Like it's perfect for both Zach and Aaron Rodgers, who has really turned into quite the mentor. So
I love the Hard Knocks, man. Hard Knocks is good this year.
What I will say in regard to that is I think in that media market, look, I think people understand Zach Wilson has obviously not done what the Jets would have expected, right? He has not lived up to expectations of the number 2 overall pick in 2 years. But him still being on the roster is not you're not admitting, right? You failed. Once you get rid of him, once you demote him to third string, that's when you're really admitting that this was a failure. And I think admitting failure in that media market is very different than admitting failure in this one. And that's where I think the Jets would also be hesitant. Like I think heads would roll for the Jets in that.
I looked at the numbers today. Just I thought it was interesting. In the since this century, since 2000, there have been 70 quarterbacks drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Of those 70, how many do you believe have actually won a Super Bowl?
20.
Hold on. Since 2000?
Since 2000, there have been
since
7.
2000. Sorry, not 20. Sorry, not 20.
Yeah, we've got
70 quarterbacks have gone in the first round.
3.
I'll say 4.
Ben Roethlisberger,
Manning,
and Mahomes. Those are the 3.
And then the 4th Manning. That's why I said 4.
Oh, yeah.
The other
right.
Manning.
The other Manning.
Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
I forgot about him.
Joe Flacco. Flacco. Matthew Stafford.
Oh, yeah, Stafford.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes. And is there one more?
Peyton Manning.
No, that's
Manning.
just 6.
Manning.
Yeah.
No, Peyton Manning. You got Manning?
Yeah. Did I have
You had Eli. You said Eli first.
This is since 2000. When did Peyton?
Peyton won in 06 and 2015.
When was he drafted, though?
1998.
That's why. So 2000. So he's doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2000.
So 70 quarterbacks in the first round since 2000. And they have 6 Super Bowls. 6 of them have won Super Bowls. So we're talking about less than 10%.
I don't even think the 2000 draft had a first.
We're talking about 8.5% of the quarterbacks drafted have won a Super Bowl. If you take a quarterback in the first round, the whole thought process in your war room is we can win the Super Bowl with this guy. And if you're in the first round, you're taking a quarterback. You're all your guys have to believe that. 70 in the century, 6 have won the quarterback. At the end of the day, it's just an impossible thing. There's so many failures. There's so many misses. There's a lot of Pro Bowl quarterbacks.
How many of those quarterbacks had less starts than Trey Lance before they were relegated to being a bust and not playing?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple guys on their second go around, let's say. Guys who won, right? Like Stafford.
Mm-hmm.
Stafford didn't win with Detroit.
Right. I mean, he was also drafted to 0-16 Detroit, to be fair.
Yeah.
That's a tough spot. Chanel L. Matter says, great show as always, Vish. Thank you. My question for Krueger on Purdy's arm strength after the surgery. Is it an issue? What's your analysis? Go Niners. I like that. Go Niners.
It's to me, it's about can he it's a violent game. Can he stand up and play the full season? But his arm looks plenty strong. I mean, it wasn't enormously strong, but it doesn't look diminished, let's just say, from last year. It looks about the same. So it's on the bottom of the scale for he's not Herbert. You're going to see that tomorrow night at Levi's, right? But he also, does some other things. He moves well. He plays the play action game well. He plays the quick game well. He's got good footwork. He can play the bootleg. He's accurate. and he's kind of gutsy, throws some balls down the field. I mean, it's just a matter of can he play the schedule and stay upright. And hopefully they should play him really smart and just make sure he's in there because he's having a great camp. He was 12 for 12 the last practice. Now, and I know Grant was saying a lot of that was underneath, but he took some shots down the field. We're talking about, 15 to 18-yard outs, and he's sticking it in there and putting it on the hands.
Flav is coming back at you, Jesse. He says, when did I blame Trey for being picked? Would I blame him if he was paid $30 million and throws a tantrum because he was beat by another player? Yes, this is what you paid for. He's not owed anything.
Okay. I honestly don't have the energy to go back and forth with Flav. It's just, there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to change Flav's mind. I've gone to him in DMs. I've done, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of done with the whole Flav back and forth, to be real.
I will say I like that Flav brings it. I think
I don't mind Flav. I don't. Again,
it's just a point of view.
I don't mind Flav.
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I don't mind Flav as a person. We actually have fine conversation behind closed doors. But this over the top, like, I hate Trey. Like, I just don't. I don't buy it. I think it's fake. I don't buy it, and I think he tries to overdo it. And I'm done with the conversation. So.
I mean, my whole thing with it is just that, all I was going to say, I like Flav. He popped on the video call last night. But I would just say that, where me and him kind of part ways is we both don't think Trey's ready to play week 1 over Brock. That's as far as I'm going. I'm not going any further to the guy can't play. He'll never play. He'll never make it. I kind of see the same guy that they drafted. So I'm not that concerned. I think the guy's got a lot of talent. It's just a matter of patience and how long how long can the Niners go financially before they have to make a decision? It's a business. There's other factors. They've got a deep roster. They got the cap staring them, in the face next year. They've got decisions to make. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. It's, we play it out like it's a soap opera to some degree with the quarterbacks, but, it hasn't been handled well. I mean, everybody knows that they paid too much at this point for what they've gotten, and where it's at doesn't look good. The question is, do you stay the course and have faith that you maybe made originally a good decision and stay the course and figure it out and use them? Or do you just, that's it, moving on, going to the next guy? He costs too much. We're going to prioritize our roster. I mean, that's really the decision, right? What would you guys do in that situation? Would you rather prioritize the roster and move on from him and just take whatever you can get and don't worry about saving face in a trade? Or would you keep him on the roster and see if you can make it work financially going forward? Because he gets expensive and he's the third string guy right now.
They've already shown that they're not worried about saving face, which is fine. Like, I commend that. Like, if you believe in your decision making, whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant. If you believe in your decision making that much, if you believe it that much, then don't not trade him for peanuts. The 49ers do this, and we talked about this with Jimmy Garoppolo. They were done with Jimmy Garoppolo. They literally told the world, we don't want Jimmy. Now come get him for 2 second-round picks. Oh, you're not willing to offer that? Well, then we'll keep him. We'll redo his contract. We'll do all the things. Hey, we don't want Trey Lance. Come get him. Oh, you want to give us a 6th? No. We want like a 3rd or multiple 3rds or whatever the hell they want. Like, you can't. That's not how you do business. And so if you don't want these guys, then let them go. You don't have to cut them. And again, I know that the spin out there is there's no value for them. Well, no value is not actually true. When you say no value, it's just not the value that you would want in return. You're telling me not a single team throughout the process of the last year he's been on the block was willing to give even a 7th round pick for Trey Lance? I don't believe that.
I think at this point, though, it does become harder to move him because quarterback rooms are completed and he has guaranteed money on his contract.
So they should have done it 5 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago when they made the decision.
What's he worth? What's his market?
But the issue, I will also include the issue was they always had to hold on to him because Brock's health remained so suspect. And that's where he kind of got screwed with how this situation turned out, because he stayed on to a situation that materialized in a way that if it materialized this way, they had already made a decision to do this to him. And it's disappointing. Brother Bob says, I like Pig in a Pickle. Said he's more than a pimp, more of a pimp than Kyle. I don't know what that emoji ever
Genius, probably.
How are you this
very creative. Thank you.
That is
Thank
good.
you, Brother Bob.
Robbie says, in 2021, everyone wanted Kyle to get rid of Jimmy and embrace his quarterback. I don't know that he's doing that. If they get rid of Trey Lance, then he's doing that. If they don't, then Trey Lance kind of just looms over this situation probably more than a number 3 quarterback ever should.
Yeah, Robbie, I talked about this on yesterday's show, and in that moment, I didn't know some of the backstory. Hadn't seen the Kawakami article, and I literally say on the stream multiple times, yeah, I mean, I may not agree with it, but I've been saying it. You back a quarterback, you choose a quarterback, you move on from the other one. At that time, for that, few hours, it really did seem like Trey's time was done in San Francisco. I'm like, hey, this is great. You're choosing somebody, you're moving on from the other one. This is all good news. But then the more that I read and kind of see the behind the scenes of potentially what their inner thinking is, it's like, well, I don't believe that they're going all in on Brock either. I think that they'll throw him to the wolves if he doesn't do what they want. And they've already built Sam Darnold up to be that replacement. Like, they've already set the whole stage for Sam Darnold to come in if Brock is not who they've sold you that he is. So I don't think they're going all in on Brock. I think that they are going to go all in on these two. And if Brock sucks or isn't who they think, they have no problem kicking him to the curb the way they did Trey Lance. And that's what I'm saying. Don't get hooked onto any of these quarterbacks. Not until you see an extension of 5 years, big money, whatever. And even then, don't get freaking hooked.
Jesse,
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Just one thing though, if you thought they were going to trade him and you don't know what they're getting back and you don't think they're getting very much back, you would be happy with that. See, I'm not happy with that. To me, I think he has more value than that, and I would rather keep him and utilize his value, even if it's a high priced insurance policy at this point. I'd rather have him on the team than give him away.
What reps?
To me, I wouldn't take a 6th-round pick for him. I just have him on the roster. I think he has more value to that than that to you right now. Even in a number 3 role, your guys get hurt a lot.
How does he? Okay, if people get hurt, then I agree. But if people don't get hurt, you're kind of stuck in limbo with him because he doesn't gain value over the course of the year, right? Dan Orlovsky, I heard him talking about this earlier. He said quarterback 3s don't get any reps. Dan Orlovsky would know that because he's been a quarterback 3 a lot. With all due respect, he would know that situation. And he said basically Brock Purdy is going to get all the reps, and the couple of reps that he doesn't get, Sam Darnold will get, and then Sam Darnold will take all the scout team reps. So you're kind of stuck in a limbo with Trey Lance because what are you really doing him to get him better or to create value for him?
No, I hear you. I hear you. He's an insurance policy. You're right. It's not in his best interest. It's in his best interest to go somewhere and either play or get a kind of a fresh start, but I mean, what do you guys ultimately think is going to be the end game here? Do you think Trey ends up with the Niners and it's an awkward situation as the 3rd guy? They hold him to the trade deadline. They make a deal before Tuesday, the cut down. They keep him. I mean, there's only so many options. I'm on the record saying that if I'm predicting it, I'm saying that they trade him to the Vikings. The BYU kid looks really, really raw, and they've got Mullins. They may want another guy. They've got Cousins. They're looking for a future. Cousins is walking at the end of the year. It's a local kid. They could it would be very good PR for the year. I could see Minnesota, offering something marginal, and the 49, maybe Andrew Booth or one of their defensive ends, Marcus Davenport, or the kid from Army, Andre Carter the 3rd. Andre Carter the 2nd or 3rd. Yeah. So, I think that's what I would predict. What do you guys think is the end game? What do you think? Is he going to be on the team? Is he going to be traded? If so, where do you guys think he's going?
Chess?
I think it depends on how much noise he makes. I mean, it's funny because I got a text yesterday that said that they basically what Kawakami ended up saying hours later, which is they felt comfortable with putting Trey Lance as the third quarterback because they know that he wouldn't be a malcontent. But that was before he became potentially a malcontent and saying that he wanted out and get me out of here at all costs. And so if that is really what's going on, how loud is he willing to be? How far is he willing to go with it? Probably not that far. And so I think in that instance, he ends up staying. But if he really is like, listen, you think I'm just going to sit here and be quarterback 3 and I'm going to be good and there's going to be no talk about me and I'm just going to be okay with this? I'm not going to play that game. And then at that point, they're probably like, okay, well, we thought you'd be good at quarterback 3. I guess that's not the case. It's time to just move on. So I don't know. I think that all depends on Trey.
Digital Drew says, just so that Flav doesn't pay all your bills, poke Flav and he spills money like a super chat did. Brother Bob says, exactly, Jesse. You're keeping it 100, G. I agree, Jesse, but I don't know which part he's telling you that you're keeping
I don't know either.
Context is everything.
Jbuzzum 86 says, you guys think Fields would have worked here? I think we actually answered this exact question last week. And I think all three of us said no, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I said no. You said no. I don't remember what Larry said.
Me neither.
I don't either. But I'll say this. No, I kind of like Fields as far as a talent. I mean, look at what he's demonstrated. He's got home run 4.4 flat speed. At times, he's very accurate. I just think that give him time and reps with his weapons. He's now got some weapons there. I think you're going to see a much better player the next couple of years. I kind of like him a little bit.
I don't think Josh Allen would have worked here.
I like Fields fine. I don't like this situation for Fields.
Listen. I don't know what Fields is going to be yet, but he's trending in the right direction. But we don't know for sure on Fields. But I'll take it a step further. We do know who Josh Allen is. We know he's a hell of a quarterback, arguably the second best quarterback in the league. I think he is the second best quarterback in the league. I don't think Josh Allen would have worked here if he was drafted in 2021.
Why?
And we know, and that's a bona fide superstar. So
why do you think he wouldn't have worked here?
Bro, with what time? They would have sat him year 1. They would have. They already said.
Oh, you don't think they would have been patient enough for him?
No, they would have sat him year 1. He would have came in and completed 57% of his passes, and they would have been like, "We're done."
Well, it depends on what he's.
I think he's the guy that made
the ball period.
I think his pass over Warner's head in that primetime game,
yes,
it
made him go get a Trey Lance. Yes.
Exactly.
But
that was a rocket.
That was finished. That was finished project. He likes finished projects. He doesn't like going through what it takes to get him there. So,
lucky him, he lucked into to Purdy here.
Flav is now coming at you, Lair. He says, "Not saying Trey can ever make it either, Lair, but will be years and more likely he doesn't make it. And me saying he's not a good QB is not me hating on him. The 49ers.
That's not hating. That's not hating. You're right, Flav. That's not hating. You saying you don't think his good QB is not hating. It's all the extra BS that comes with it.
Seriously, it's a.
But it's all the extra stuff.
That's not what we call hating. And you are kind of right. It seems like the 49ers clearly think the same. We'll find out if they're right. Brother Bob says, final question. Does Moody? All right, this one.
Scare you.
Oh, it's just scare you. Okay, he scares me. Krug, this is best for you. You're the one seeing it up close. Because all I read during training camp was Jake Moody is killing it from 60. Jake Moody is just nailing it from 61. Yeah. And I have not seen that Jake Moody. So you've seen that Jake Moody. Tell us that we're going to be okay with Jake Moody.
I have no idea on this. I mean, seriously, this guy could be the next great kicker for the next 20 years. Or he could be like, a punchline. I mean, who knows? I mean, the guy has a monster leg, and he makes them in practice. And the people that I've talked to from Michigan thought he was clutch and a special kicker. And if he is a special kicker, I don't have a problem with them drafting him now where they drafted him. But if he's not a special kicker, it's once again the ring, the ringing in your ears. Don't draft kickers on day 2 or punters. But they felt they had the need. Even though they had Robbie Gould, they wanted to go in this direction. He's got a powerful leg. Who knows? Other than that, who knows?
So
I mean,
can you answer
he looks
the
good in
second
practice. He looks good in practice.
Answer the second part of Chenille's question here, though, because he or she has the same exact concept of question that they're worried about the kicker, and they're saying what happens if you feel like you can't believe in Moody.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to go with him. They've seen he's been really strong in practice. There's also a business plan. When you look at what he makes very little as a rookie kicker. So, I mean, there's that situation. That's why they went in this direction anyway. Once they paid Hargrave, I think it was pretty clear they were going to try to pinch pennies in other spots. This was one of those pennies that got pinched, and we'll see how it works out. I mean, I will say this. They're in a very good spot on the 24th of August, a much better spot than I thought they'd be in. Why? Because the kid has been very good in practice, and they've got Zane Gonzalez, who's made 55 and 57-yard field goals and has also been very good in practice. And you've got Robbie Gould a phone call away, who's still out there. So as of this moment, they're still sitting in a good spot, but they got to be decisive and know what they have in Moody. I mean, they're trying to win a Super Bowl here. So are they all in on Moody no matter what? Or if not, would they consider Zane Gonzalez? Would they call up Robbie? Will they scrap their plan? Will Robbie take less? I mean, you never know. Is Robbie going to come back and play? It's August 24th. Is he retired?
If he misses a kick and an extra point this week, I don't think he's on the team.
Wow. Yeah, you might be
Moody?
right.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
The extra point would be worse.
You can't. I'm sorry. Like, players deserve time to develop. Kickers are not one of those positions, unfortunately. It's just the way that it works. And if you're
That's
trying
the way
to win a
it
Super
has
Bowl,
worked in the past. You're right.
yeah, I mean, if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you just can't take that risk. I mean, he's already missed multiple kicks. He missed an extra point. He damn near, missed the game winner. Even his extra point he made in week 1 was shaky. If he comes out and misses an extra point and a kick or 2 chip shot kicks, I bet you he doesn't make it to Monday.
That's crazy, but that could be true.
I asked
Finally,
one of the beat writers. Sorry about that. I asked one of the beat writers, what kind of rope does Moody have? Like the other day, one of the veteran guys, and he's like 2 years. I said 2 years.
2 years. That's kind of crazy. 2
And
years.
I mean,
for
look
a
at the
kicker?
difference between what your standard and that guy. 2 years. He said.
For
I
a
go,
kicker
come
is
on.
wild.
I go, that is wild. I said, how about 2 more kicks?
Yeah.
So you're on the same page as Jesse.
I do.
Flav,
I
and this
think-
will be our last super chat, and we will probably complete the show here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to the Krueg Show, where we will be next week at 10 p.m. Eastern, where 9:30 Eastern, where Jessie Naylor is, 8:30 Central, where I am, 7:30 Mountain, where nobody is, and 6:30 Pacific, where Larry Krueger is. So
I got
we
a buddy
will
who's
be back-
I got a buddy in Hawaii. Vish, could you please give Hawaii time because he's a big fan of the show.
Okay, fine. And your buddy in Hawaii. I don't actually know what the Hawaii time is, so I'm assuming it's 3
Isn't it
hours. So let's go
3:30 or
with
something?
5:30. It's okay, 3:30.
I don't know
Come
what
on.
time it is.
Why?
I feel like it's 6 hours behind East Coast. So
You got an
It's
iPhone.
6 hours behind East Coast.
I
Perfect.
think so.
So then
I
it
can tell
will
you what it
be-
is in Dusseldorf right now. You kidding me?
Doozle.
So with that, we'll go to Flav's question. He said 100% give him away, even if he's not worth the 7th. Package him with the pick to get it done and save the $5 million by not cutting plus $4 million in cap space. He's not helping anyone being here, including himself.
I mean,
There you
that
go.
seems so like. I mean, if you want to, if you're just saying it because you're kind of this is your point of view, that's one thing. But I mean, look what you're potentially. I mean, look at it this way. This is the way I look at it, guys. Tell me if you see this analogy. You're going on a cross country trip. I mean, you want to pack as much as possible. I mean, as talent go, quarterbacks go down. If you're standing there on the sidelines, you see how violent the sport is. Guys can go down on any play. Purdy could be awesome. Darnold could be awesome. They could both be out by week 3. You know what I mean? It's like football's a weird sport. So to me, I always want more, not less. Last year was just a brutal ending. To me, if you're moving off Trey Lance, you got to get something that helps you win this year. Otherwise, I think it's a bad move.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, my standpoint of what I would do and what the 49ers would do are complete different things, though. I'm just trying to, I'm trying, I guess I'm trying to be logical in a very illogical situation. And I'm trying to understand it from the 49ers standpoint of what they think, where their mind might be. And to me, it just seems like they're so far out on trade that what's the point? Like you at least do it now before Allen's now gone. You know, at least like Allen is a pretty damn serviceable number 3. So get rid of
Yeah,
Trey.
what if it
And he
plays out?
financially,
You're right. What if it plays out where they go with Trey out of camp? Allen goes somewhere else because he's not. This talk. We'll put him on the. He's not going on the practice squad.
No.
And so end that discussion. It's not fun. It's just not going to happen. I don't think, unless they cut some side deal. Are they allowed, Vish, to cut any side deals? I don't know about that.
not as far as I know, and especially when you
No.
look at the financial dynamic. And I'll make this last point before we go. Last year they were so conscious about the financial dynamic of their room that they ensured that Jimmy reduced his base salary below Trey's before he came back. And now you're telling me this year they're going to go into a room and have no issues with the politics of having their third quarterback make $9 million, which is a couple more $1 million than their backup, who makes a few more $1 million than their starter. I find that hard to believe. I think Mike Silver's article and Krug, you talking about, and Jesse, all of you, both of you guys were like, hey, Brandon Allen's a bona fide third quarterback from the beginning. I think they like financially how he fits into this team as a third quarterback and how it's structured from that standpoint. I still think the goal will be to move Trey Lance. I think that they're already hedging being unable to move Trey Lance when they talk about how much they would like him as their third quarterback.
Yeah, I think just from a quarterback room standpoint, Brandon Allen does make the most sense because you always want that veteran presence in the room. You've got 3 quarterbacks. Sam Darnold's experienced, but he ain't good. And I don't know that you want him mentoring anybody. So, I mean, you got 2 23-year-olds and a 25-year-old. They could use a veteran presence in the room. Josh Allen talks about it. Burrow talks about it. Quarterbacks
Right. Matt
talk
Barkley
about
stayed
how
around in
important those
Buffalo
guys
forever.
are. Yeah.
Like you said, exactly. Good point. Iceman 0072 says, Larry, I know you know Damon Bruce.
Yep.
I know Damon Bruce is your friend. He said most Niner content creators are inexperienced fanboys with the stream. Larry, be the diplomat of peace.
I mean, I think he's wrong, and I told him that, to his face. So, and on Twitter. So,
Right.
you
were the diplomat of peace.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I was a diplomat of peace.
Larry's not his keeper. Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, like they're friends or whatever, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a comment that Larry made. I don't think that Larry needs to apologize for a comment he didn't make, or hold anybody accountable. Like, you're talking about an adult who has an opinion that I think is a really crappy one, and he got called on it. So whatever.
Everybody's got their perspective. He's not, I told him, I said that I felt he should apologize because I really believe that there's a lot of really good people who are in the content creator community. And it's just, there's a lot of hardworking people who are doing a really good work, I think. So I just said that to him, and has not apologized. Has no plan to. There's a bunch of people that side with him. There's people that side with me or whatever, side with the content creator community. I mean, it is what it is. I don't get too caught up in it. It doesn't sound like he's going to apologize, but it's up to him. He made the comment, and my whole thing is like, hey, nobody gets. You always want to. You're in the room. It's like, respect your opponent. Well, it's the same kind of thing. And we're not opponents in here, but I mean, respect the people who do the grind, who put out content and put themselves out there. Do not tear anybody down. My philosophy is just that, hey, you know what? I want you to listen to my channel, but I'm not going to get on my channel and say whatever content creator I don't like, don't listen to their stuff. To me, the one line, and I've always tried to lead my career this way: don't F with somebody's money. And that's kind of when you cross the line, it's kind of F with somebody's money. That could be this is how some of those people maybe provide for their family. This might be, what they're putting out there. It's like, do not attack a person's money. And he probably, when you look at the way these things are run and how it goes, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me. And I told him, whatever. And he can do what he wants.
Jesse, anything to add?
I was just gonna say, I mean, my response really was not a selfish response for me. Like I've been very clear about my stance in this. I don't need a single dollar from it. I do it because it's fun. I provide for my family in a whole different way. Certainly, I would love to go full time in this and be a full time content creator because I love it. I love the community. I love the interaction. And it would be a dream. But at the same time, if I lost it tomorrow, I'm fine. But there are people that genuinely do this full time. And the moment you come out and make a comment like that, you might be stealing money from those people. And that's how they feed their children. I think it's gutless. And I think it's a coward move. And I told him that. And I'll say it again. And I'll say it to his face. So that's what I think.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, fantastic show.
Explosive ending. The Vish Kumaran extravaganza tonight. Explosive.
I thought it would be a perfect time to end because we got to leave people wanting more, right? And we know that we're going to hit the 3-hour mark next week. I know we're going to hit the 3-hour mark this week because I just can't imagine that the next few days, including the preseason game and everything, aren't just going to be the most eventful days, non-season, in the entire season. Brother Bob is coming. Nah, Jesse, he says FDB, DB, and he says racist. I can't figure out that
sexist,
word. Sexist, bigot.
I don't know about any of those things. But yeah, Brother Bob, if you say that, well, that's not good either. But Krueg, we'll see you next week on your channel. Jesse, we'll see you the week after on Last Second Sports. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to both. Make sure you're liking this video. Jesse, Larry, and I, all three of us put in a lot of hard work into this show. We love coming here each week and doing this for you guys with each other. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Vish, how many subs are you at right now? Where are you at right now? Hold on, let's look at it.
8,400 something, perhaps.
All right,
something
listen.
in that range.
Everybody hit like and subscribe over here at the Vish Kumaran extravaganza.
Okay, you're at 8,600. By the time we're here in 3 weeks again, if you guys who love this trio are doing your job, Vish is at 9,000 subs minimum by the time we're back over here. So show him some love.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you guys to say. But make sure
I was going to say like more like 8,800. But
yeah. Okay. Krug's trying to temper expectations on
Nope. I'm not doing
Jesse
it.
thinks I have 9K. A high ceiling here, but
9K.
Krug doesn't.
I'm saying maybe 8,850.
Okay. 9K. It's happening.
Wait, Krug, are you gonna hedge? Are you gonna hedge now? Are you gonna get Rohan and hedge on me? Is that what's gonna happen?
Yes, I was on the Rohan extravaganza. He is a very, very good man.
He is a good man. I was on with Rohan just earlier today. But thank you guys. We'll see you guys next time. This was awesome. Remember to tune in next week on the Krueg Show, week after Last Second Sports. See you guys there.